Good evening, everyone. How are you doing tonight? Dadman Walking 55, the one, the only, the true banana football guy, here with you at 4 minutes after 8 p.m. on the great East Coast of the United States, the only time zone that is official and should be tracked by everybody. All time should be Eastern time zone. So, anyway, but I have a guest tonight that might disagree with that, but we can't help it. We can't help it. Those people in the other time zones are just a little bit slow. But okay, that's the best I got tonight. Sorry, folks. Hey, don't mean to run y'all off bad dad jokes, but you know what? If you didn't get bad dad jokes, it would not be Dadman Walking 55 or a Dadman channel. You know how that goes. So, my goodness, folks, what a busy, busy day it has been. Um, so, um, it's just it's been a crazy day. Had to got Ang to a job fair, had a doctor's appointment, and the missus and I are working on something that just became a hurricane today, and something to roll out that we will show you and pitch at the end of the stream tonight. So stay tuned for the end. It'll be a treat for you. I will promise you that. Um, um, so stay with us. So hopefully you have gotten your rest in today, and everything. You are ready for fun tonight. We're going to talk football. I'm excited about this guest. Who the heck called? Oh, it was my wife that called me a couple minutes ago. I guess she's okay because I don't have a text. So anyway, that's the problem when you put headphones on. You don't hear anything. So let me greet the chat that's here. We got the great Snortus Poopas Cuber, how humans and other critters. And we got JT Kirk. Hey, JT. Speaking of that, let's introduce the old guy himself, an hour time zone behind me, but one of the people out here that has some experience with college football. Just don't call him Big Blue, don't call him Wolverine, and don't ask him to go to Ann Arbor. But it's the great JT Kirk. Howdy, sir.
Hail, and as of course on your channel, as is tradition. Damn it, Mark.
There you go.
But I do have a surprise for you. I am actually in Eastern time, so we are in the same time zone, sir.
What?
Yeah, and the world headquarters for my employer is also in Eastern time, so I love making the rest of the world, just bend the knee to the only time zone that really should ever exist, which is Eastern. So
I agree. Our friend Ramley Canuck and I have that ongoing debate quite often, but it is still East. The East Coast time zone is the only one that should be official and exist. But hey, that's good. I do have a friend up in Ohio, and I keep forgetting that. Sometimes you just make the presumption that they're an hour behind, but it's kind of weird because like in Mississippi, Alabama, they're an hour behind, but I don't know. Just I guess it's been a while since I've seen a map.
Oh yeah, there's parts of Indiana and Michigan that are further west than Nashville, and they're still in Eastern, and Nashville's in Central. So it makes no sense, which is why we should get rid of the other time zones and just make everybody, work on Eastern.
There you go.
Anyway, enough about time.
Exactly.
It's time to talk about football, isn't it?
Absolutely. So we're going to do a few different things as we talk about. We got 6 people here that are with us tonight, and no rest for the old bear today. All right. Well, hey, you sit back, welcome, enjoy, kick your feet up here. We are at 486 subscribers, so please, if you make sure you're still subscribed on the YouTube side. If you haven't subscribed, let's get to 500. We're 14 away. We kind of did that go up and back, but hey, folks, thank you for your support. Thank you for being here. Thank you if you're lurking, or if you watch a replay. And bring your football questions out. We like talking football. We like answering questions too. If you have questions about the game. And it's my friend, Masters Maniac Mexico. Finally, we're back to Faki.
MMM.
Mexico bends down to the East Coast and to the great JT Kirk.
Love it.
Love it. JT tip off. Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. But hey, oh my goodness. So hey, great to see you tonight. One of the things I like to start out with a little bit, JT Kirk, is to let the audience, let our viewers get to know our guest a little bit more. So I mean, I know you don't have a YouTube channel, so you're not a streamer per se. But what what is it about JT Kirk? What are your interests? What are your hobbies? And I mean,
Oh,
beyond
sure.
football.
Sure. So, yeah, I have not had a streaming channel in about 4 years now. I did a very small time kind of gaming chat channel with some buddies of mine, but we never broke three viewers after about a year. So
Mm,
it kind of petered out with the pandemic and all of that. But
yeah.
by day, I'm an IT person. I've done
Hmm.
a lot of different areas of IT over the years, but currently I am in an operations role. So
Yeah.
when something breaks down and it's costing the company oodles and oodles of money every second, they call myself or someone else on the team. So it's a needed thing and kind of makes you have a little
Hmm.
bit more of an exciting time in life. But so that means in my spare time, I'm also an IT guy,
Hmm.
huge IT nerd, build my own PCs, build my
Yep.
own home theater stuff.
Hmm.
Like a NAS and things, so I can store my media. So I don't have to keep putting the discs in, that kind of thing. And big time gamer when my non-parenting time allows, which isn't very big these days.
I force you to stay up way late at night, doesn't it?
Oh, well, you're really bending my arm there, huh?
No. Hey, do you ever get the question from your spouse or for your family, like you need to, like, how do you do it? How do you stay up so late? Or you need to go to
um,
bed?
you should see how much caffeine I take in on a daily basis. That'll answer a lot of
No,
questions.
I agree. I agree with you. It's usually the wife is like, "Why are you still up?" Or and like other people, like one of my people that I know that knows me that stream that sees when I go live and stream, and I'm like, they're like, "How do you function at work the next day?" I said, "Caffeine and the sleep I get is really heavy sleep." So
Oh yes, yeah, yeah. When I'm done, I'm done, and only a 3-year-old can wake me up.
there you
The
go.
alarms, nothing there. Well, I have a natural alarm,
Yeah.
so and he
Well,
knows when it's
Masters,
5 minutes
Matt,
before your alarm, whenever it goes off. So.
well, Masters just give me a hard time. What sort of question was that? This man is the captain of the Enterprise. No time for hobbies. Good Lord.
Although
Yes.
Captain Kirk has been known to climb some mountains, you know,
Oh,
so that I would call that a hobby. But
yeah.
anyway, yeah, no, so I'm a huge Linux guy, so you know, um, you
Linux
have
is
to
what?
kind of be a computer nerd, huh? Sorry.
Linux is what again?
It is a free and open source version. Well, most of them are that of an operating system, and it's an alternative to say Windows. But most computer servers in the world run on Linux because
Hmm.
it's more lightweight and stable and built for like a command line interface than say a GUI like a lot of your Windows stuff. But you can get a desktop and all that too. So it's not like I'm playing old school 1990s computers here.
Well, I took DOS back in the 80s, as a
Mm-hmm.
basic computer stuff. I mean, you had that, you had COBOL, things like that, which of course with Battlestar Galactica, you hear COBOL, you're like, you know,
The
making
lords of the
connection.
programming language.
I
Yeah.
know, but it's just like how I mean, before it's like line 10 and then do that. It's like God. I mean, how it's amazing how technology has come between the programming and how much more powerful it is than those early days.
Mm-hmm. And Linux is an outgrowth of Unix. It's a Unix-like operating system.
We're
So if
not
you ever
talking
heard of
about we're not talking about the like the neutered priest, right?
no,
Okay,
UNIX as an
okay, all right,
X-ray. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, but it can be very versatile, very customizable. When I go back
Hmm.
to the Windows side of my computer, I always groan because I can't customize the desktop the way I like on the Linux
Right.
side. But learning curve and all that too. But my other interests, of course, gaming.
Hmm.
Um, we play Fortnite, but I play a lot of other kind of stuff. But I tend towards single player because until I ran into you folks, multiplayer gets kind of annoying. Dealing
Really?
with
Okay.
randos. Yeah,
Oh,
for
dealing
me
with
anyway.
random. Okay.
Yeah, with randoms and things. Of course, huge Detroit sports person, whether it be the Red Wings or up until this year, I've been an anti Lions fan because the only way to get joy from the Detroit Lions was to root against them.
Hmm.
So this is a new experience for me. And
Right.
then, huge into YouTube streams and history. Huge history buff when I was younger. Haven't had so much time for it. And my second job, I'm an amateur musician.
Oh, right. Right.
So yeah, I play an original 19th century instrument. And so I won't go too in depth into all these things now, but I like to think I'm a man of at least a few talents.
And there you go. See, I love the history aspect because there's some of the things on my channel that I need to try to roll out. It's some of more of our history stuff, which we did on some of our tours, but it's like other things have come up between life and other streaming possibilities. But I do hope to get to some more of the pictures and forts and some of our visits down the road with some things when football season's over, because really this type of stream does take a couple days for prep, and got to recap, got to get everything pulled together. So
Mhm.
hopefully when I have more time, so in the meantime it's just quick random type streams. You mentioned Fortnite, because I was wondering what you meant about solo because our games, but you're talking about the solo individual player games.
Single player, yeah,
Yeah,
single
yeah,
player
whereas
like strategy or
right.
stuff like that, right?
Yeah, because you don't like to get put in with a bunch of 12-year-olds like you would in Fortnite and crazy lobbies and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, see that I played so much solo Fortnite in the days of 2020 that were like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning working at home.
Hmm.
I finally burned out on play. I'd solo. The only time I play solo is when I stream it because I've got the audience to chat to talk to and just kind of like somebody's there. It just I don't know. It's the only child thing or something where I like being with people, and that's what I love with
Hmm.
Fortnite is the social aspect. So when I play it, I like to play with groups with a group of people. Like we had a good one last night. It was kind of chaotic and it was a good chaos. And then there's times where I like to play with one person, solo, like get a friend, and those are usually my down. Like what the missus and I will do some streams, like just the two of us. And there are other times where just even offline, whether it's her or just another friend, just playing with one person's kind of get to chill out and relax, and and where it's quieter, because sometimes when we get 6 to 8 people, oh my gosh, it's
Right,
madness. It is
right.
crazy. So
And see, I never played Fortnite until I ran into this group, and I think I even watched you guys for months, thinking,
yeah,
I don't know. But then, the more you get to know people, I was like, yeah, I'll try this Fortnite thing, and um, it's been a
yeah,
lot of fun ever since.
yeah.
So,
I really love it as a social game. I mean, the thing is it does have glitches like we ran into last night. It does have some interesting things where people wonder about the ethics and the fairness of the competition, but that's why at the end of the day, I try not to focus as much on complaining about that stuff. I try to focus on that I'm spending time with friends,
yep,
and
yeah.
letting the other stuff go by. Just it is what it is. So blow up a few
I
gas stations, stuff like that.
I try to be tolerant of bugs too, being an IT person. I know it's one of those things, right? But I'm also very intolerant of bugs at the same time because sometimes
Well,
the state things get released and you're like, who pulled the
yeah,
trigger on this?
yeah. And the thing is that you're making all this money on it. Invest into your infrastructure to keep the bugs from happening, or fix your problems, don't cause more problems, which we've been seeing lately. Is it seems like every update there's more and more problems that keep coming up.
Yep. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And IT people see it one way, the creators see it one way. Sometimes the business folk have a different focus in mind. So,
Oh yeah.
which is unfortunate, but hey, it
Oh yeah.
happens.
Well, we're talking football tonight. Our guest is JT Kirk. We started off with a little bit of background of interest of him. We'll talk more about your football background and whether it's college or pro and stuff like that. One thing I will touch on real quick, we do have an NFL game tonight. The Jaguars are playing at the Saints, and the Jaguars seem to be driving the ball really quick so far early on. But JT, you're a Detroit sports fan that you said so that'd be
Mhm.
Pistons, Red Wings, uh, Tigers,
Tigers.
and the Lions.
Yeah, we are one of
And
the few cities in the U.S. that have all four major sports. So, if you're not counting, I don't count the MLS with soccer. And if we're looking to get a Focky team, Masters. If you know anybody, we got to get a
Well,
Focky team up there.
well, hey, you got to contact them. You got to pay the franchise fee. You're located up in that area. You'd
Yeah,
be the natural Focky team owner up there.
yeah. Well, yeah. We'll see. Capital's a little short these days.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, we're gonna. Which of the sports do you like the best? Which of all the four of the major pro sports that you have teams? It's hard. Which one of the four major pro franchises is your favorite? Would you say?
Without a question, it would have to be the NFL. If you're talking pro
Really,
sports, yeah.
in spite of how feudal the Detroit Lions have been for so long. I mean, you've had
Yeah.
hockey and NBA titles,
So
but it's interesting. Go ahead. Sorry.
we've got a sports talk radio show here on one of the local stations, and the guy keeps turning down offers to be poached by ABC in New York, and the four-letter network and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how bad that team is, the number one thing in this town that they talk about is football. Now, Detroit's supposed to be Hockey Town, USA. Hockey is almost a minor league sport in many parts of this town. Now, not all of it. There'll be parts of this town that would be very mad with me if I said that.
Right.
But the Pistons have been so bad for most of my life. They had a little run there in the early 2000s. They don't have a great stadium that was just built.
Is it still the Palace?
No, they actually tore the Palace down. So
Oh,
the Palace
wow.
wasn't even empty for a decade, and they tore that thing down.
Mm.
I saw Queen there like a month before they tore it down in 2019. It was kind of weird.
See, that's what's weird, and that's where I lose perspective. How our age differences between me and a lot of the guests and stuff like that. Because to me, it's just commonsensical. Doing Lane Beer, Isaiah Thomas, Rodman,
Mm-hmm.
The championships, and I keep forgetting that a lot of people did not witness those things that I saw many, many years ago.
Now, I was a tyke for a lot of that, or I might have still been in Florida at that point and being a Magic fan. But I grew up with Barry Sanders. And it was Barry Sanders that everyone wanted to be as a kid, running with the ball in the playground, versus Deion Sanders would be on the other side, because their names are both Sanders, right? So the only other good alternative to Barry was Deion. But the Tigers have a big following, but it's an older following in the city. And they had some really good years, but those are even getting to be 10, 15 years ago now. But they're probably number 2 in the city. Pistons are non-existent. I would say in terms of popularity, and I kind of echo the sentiments, are number 1 football with the Lions, number 2 baseball with the Tigers, and they have a really good experience if you go to that park. It's a lot of fun. Number 3 would be the NHL with the Red Wings, and number 4 would be the Pistons. People just do not care. So.
That's interesting. I'm kind of surprised by that, but I guess it does show you the power of football, though.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
I think a lot of things is the sport, not necessarily how productive the teams are.
Mm-hmm. And there's always the SOL, same old Lions, or blank out of luck.
Oh, I thought, yeah, exactly.
And so people love putting that up there. Me too. To people that are true believers. And, people joke that the Lions color for their jersey is blue, Honolulu blue. So people are like, showing the Kool-Aid packets in Honolulu blue raspberry, those kind of memes and jokes, right? Because
that's too funny.
You always have the fans that think this year is going to be the year. And it's like, no, they didn't fire the coach.
Well, you never know.
Fire the GM. And
this year, This year it could be. I mean, well up ahead in the NFC North already. Maybe it will be. Maybe it will be the year.
Maybe.
And maybe we actually have a Detroit win on Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, and I don't know if they still have a winning record. For most of my childhood, they did, and for most of my childhood, I never saw them win.
I know. Hell to you, Jeremy. Good to see you tonight. Thanks for coming in.
So, and I know this is for college football, right? But people have to understand And Clobby will back me up on this. Clobby's always like, I'm so sorry, my good friend JT Kirk, the
Mm-hmm.
Lions fan over there, because yeah, the Jets just had their first win last weekend over the
Yep.
Eagles ever. But
And
the
Dallas
Lion,
Cowboys, thank you for that. Or thank
yeah,
the Jets for that.
yeah, the Lions have had one playoff victory since I think 1958.
Wow.
One playoff victory. Okay, so think about how many other times your team has just gone to the playoffs.
Yep.
All right. I've seen the Lions go to the playoffs twice in my whole life, and I'm in my late 30s.
Mm-hmm.
So they are one of the original teams in the NFL, and I believe there's only three. I may be wrong on that stat. Don't quote me on the number. The Lions are one of the very handful of teams that have never won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think
Not
it's
only that, they've never even
yeah,
gone, folks. They've
yeah,
never even gone.
yeah. I think it's down to that. I know Clobby mentions that. I think it's them. I think them Jacksonville,
Who's an expansion team decades
Cleveland,
younger.
maybe
And Cleveland.
Cleveland has
Cleveland,
never
yeah.
been.
The current Cleveland, not the old
Yeah,
Cleveland, who are the
yeah,
Baltimore Ravens now, right? But
yeah, exactly.
so
But
you think about that, then you think about they were the first modern team to go 0-16. Um, they've
hey,
had
a
they've had
record that's been
disaster
close to be
after
a repeated. But
disaster.
yeah, yeah, almost like the Jets type luck the Detroit Lions have had.
Yeah.
I mean,
So why they haven't done a 40 for 40, I think a 40 for 40 ever just calls it in,
but see,
and ends.
but then again, like you said, you got players that just kind of quit on the franchise, but now because they retire because look
Mm-hmm.
what I mean. Barry Sanders, not just him, but Calvin Johnson,
Yeah, I always
one of
had
the
questions
great,
about
great
Megatron's health, but
yeah,
yes, I
but
agree.
still is his great another career that just seemed to just get cut short.
Hmm.
Injury or whatever. But just in Detroit could have been a bigger star on better teams and bigger markets.
And here's another thing. Okay, so they paid big money for this quarterback that I never liked because he beat my Spartans on New Year's Day
Uh
when he
huh.
was playing in Georgia for Georgia, right?
Yep.
Um,
Matthew Stafford.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. He spent over a decade in Detroit. What did they win? What did
Nothing.
they win? Nothing. Nothing. Um, and I called him stat, or a lot of people did. I didn't invent it. They called him Stat Padford.
Yep.
Why? Because he'd have these great statistics. You could look, and he would
Hmm.
be a top 10 quarterback every year.
Oh, that's what
Oh, how many
I
wins did they have? Four. Oh, but he's such a great
dude.
quarterback.
University of Georgia. He was that way at the University of Georgia. Great stats, could never beat Florida. And
Yep,
never won a conference championship. So,
yep.
but then to not spoil your point, he spends all that time at Detroit and then goes to Los Angeles. And what happens?
That's exactly what I was going to say. The year he got traded, I told my fantasy football guys that are all Lions diehards, I said, he's going to effing win the Super Bowl. He's going to effing win the
And
Super
he
Bowl.
did the
And
next
he
year.
did. And he did.
All right. Well, hey, you got sympathy out there for
Anyway.
Masters. Master said,
Yeah.
"Don't you cry, JT. My club has seen its one and only title in 1983.
Well,
You're
they
not
have a
alone,
title? They have
huh?
a title. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you are not alone. Dial 666 football trauma." So hey, all right. Well, we got 6 people with us. We're gonna get into the football, and we'll come back to our college memories in just a second. But hey, listen, as always, folks, remember what we did do. We're not a gambling site. It's not for gambling. This is just entertainment purposes and friends talking football here. But with we're just things that we got. So JT, as I go through
Mhm.
some of these games and scores, if any of them you saw something or something jumps out, feel free to make an observation if you want to. As
Sure.
we do this, what we are doing though is last week was a bye week. We really didn't go into a lot of details. We didn't have a guest picker last week because last week we were supposed to be out of town, but all of our plans changed. It did not happen. But so the week before, we had the previous games. Vanderbilt, Florida just crushes Vanderbilt at home 38-14, a game that started slow. Vanderbilt capped on an 80-plus yard touchdown pass early in the game. After that, Florida did go away pretty convincingly, wins by 24. The Georgia Bulldogs just dismissed the Kentucky Wildcats, who had come off the just pummeling of the Gators, running the ball repeatedly. 51-13, though, they lost in Athens to the Bulldogs. Georgia comes out of that game right off the bat, hot, heavy, and finally put a game together from the very beginning. So, um, yeah, Master says Vanderbilt smells respectable but plays unacceptable. Exactly. And Vanderbilt is a team that actually got better last year, and there was some hope for this year, but they've lost games that they should not lose and cannot afford to lose. But yeah,
And
you're
they
right
play
with
in a
that.
conference where you can get better and better and better and better and never win because you're so far behind.
Well, and that's what's going to happen, I think, with these other big, the super conferences
Mm-hmm.
with what we're moving to, like the 18, 20 team conferences. But that's another issue for another day. Ole Miss outlast Arkansas 27-20, coming off its upset of LSU. Mississippi State manages to win a game against Western Michigan, still goes up 28 points. LSU and Missouri played a wild back and forth game that went down towards the end. Uh, Missouri lost, had a fourth and like 42 because Brady Cook flung the ball backwards and lost a lot of yardage. So LSU wins that game 49-39. It was a shootout. It was a good game. And then the game of the week, Alabama survives on the road at Kyle Field in College Station, 26-20 over Texas A&M. Now there's apparently some people starting to talk about. Well, I'll hold off on this. We'll see what happens next week.
Sure.
Because I've been speculating about Jimbo Fisher in that job in Texas A&M, and our friend Snorri Pupas has plenty of memories from College Station. So he talked about in the previous week. So we skipped to this week's games, this last prior week's games. And go figure, Alabama does outlast Arkansas 24-21 in a game that Alabama had a 21-3 lead at halftime, and Arkansas comes back in this, or 21 nothing lead at halftime, and see Arkansas comes back in the second half. But again, too much of a deficit to overcome against Alabama. Bama ends up holding off. Really an ugly looking team this year, Alabama, in some ways. They're not destroying anybody. They're not having great offensive outputs point wise, but they're winning. They're doing enough to win and advance. Jalen Milroe for Bama was 10 of 21, below 50%, 238 yards, though, had hit big plays downfield, 2 touchdowns, also had a touchdown rushing. Kobe Prentice for Alabama, 2 catches for 93 yards with a touchdown. And KJ Jefferson, the unknown wild card for Arkansas, was only 14 of 24 for 150 yards passing, but 2 touchdowns through the air for Arkansas. Again, Alabama still wins, moves on, advances, and that's what happens. Arkansas, again, another one of these middle of the pack teams that are condemned to mediocrity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like unless you start beating the big teams like the Alabamas, LSU's, you're condemned to being middle to below the bottom of the pack in the conference. And it's just going to get worse when you have no divisions and everybody scrambled up, and you got 18 teams fighting for 2 spots coming up. Last year we tracked that Arkansas was one of the teams that was 0-4. I think Arkansas, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, all of them were 0-4 against their big top Western Division rivals. And so all 3 ended up middle of the pack, bottom of the pack. So, JT, any thoughts on this game or Alabama?
Looking at it, it's kind of disappointing Alabama's result in this game. 13 first downs is not a lot for Arkansas, and 18 is not great for Alabama. But you look at the total yard differential, and especially the rushing yard differential, and that time of possession is not great either. I'm just looking at these going, Alabama did not perform well. For the total number of yards, they should have had at least another touchdown, in my estimation.
Yeah. And if you hold a 21-0 lead at halftime, I mean, you didn't do much in the second half to expand that lead.
Which makes it which makes it totally inexcusable. If you go up 21-0 at half, I understand you might not have all your starters in for the whole game, but you go the third quarter and you don't really put up anything. You're leaving it open for the other team to come back.
Well, one of the things that I've always noticed about games and stuff like that is that this happens. A team, when they get hot in the first half, tends to hit a plateau, and cannot get the mojo back the second half. That happened in the Florida Tennessee game where Florida had one hellacious quarter and put Tennessee away, but the second half did almost nothing. They got a field goal to expand the lead, but the play calling looked different. A lot of the Tennessee fans think that, oh well, our defense reacted differently, but to me, my opinion was that Florida called a completely different style of offense in the second half, which allowed Tennessee to play better defense. So but it is a common thing that happens. It happens in basketball, many other sports too. Is that when you have teams that get hot, they get on a roll for a while. When that roll stops, they can't get it back. So,
Mm-hmm.
so
yeah,
all right.
but yeah, I think that's enough said on that. I could keep going, but I made my point.
No, I agree with you. In a game that was a bit of a surprise, Missouri goes on the road and beats 24th ranked Kentucky 38-21 in a game that was not close. Folks, Missouri may be real. We may not be able to call them misery. This is what I like to talk to Whoopa Troopa about because we always like to pick on Missouri a bit. But they will go on the road to Lexington where Florida got crushed a couple weeks ago. Well, the favors returned to the Wildcats. Wildcats only threw for 120 yards in this game, which is Devin Leary has struggled this year with throwing the ball consistently for Kentucky, and it's going to show its head even more as we get further in the conference season. If you can't throw the ball accurately, you don't stand a chance. And unless you have a meltdown like Florida did that day against Kentucky, where you don't even tackle anybody and they just run through you, well, Kentucky got lucky with that. But look at Missouri, 38 points. Again, Brady Cook, 19 to 29 for 167 yards passing, had a touchdown and a pick, ran the ball 40 times for a touchdown. I also think of the Gators quarterback, his accuracy when they throw the ball, they score. They've been doing better when he throws more, but that Florida's a different issue. See, Missouri held the ball for about 3 more minutes, but probably one of the biggest differences is the 3 turnovers committed by Kentucky did not help in their effort to protect the home field against Missouri. Luke Bauer from Missouri was a punter, and he threw a 39-yard touchdown pass on a fake punt. At
that
the
hurts.
time, yeah,
Hurts.
at the time, Missouri was trailing 14-7. Exactly. And that's on the way far other side of the field. That's not a long touchdown pass, 39 yards. It's like, I mean, why aren't you watching for a fake punt at that point?
Right. And you have to have time to let the runner get out 39 yards down the field.
Or even if it's a 10-yard pass, but the thing is why aren't y'all watching for a fake punt? Of any time, that's the perfect position of the field to fake a punt.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, it looks like Mike Stoops got out coached in this one. Eli Drinkwitz, though, a lot going in last year had a lot of pressure on him, and looks like he may be doing something with Missouri legitimately. And we'll see the overall standings in a minute. Ray Davis for Kentucky had 20 carries, had 128 yards on the day. A really good day running the ball, but then again, you're limited to what you can do through the air. 2 receptions for Ray Davis, 11 yards, and had a touchdown. Any thoughts on this one?
I like the Ray Davis figure there. That's 6.4 yards a carry.
Yep.
That is nice. I would be pleased with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Kentucky's 3 turnovers. I mean, you turn the ball over 3 times, you're probably not going to win the game. As my John Madden opinion on that. But yeah,
mm-hmm.
Missouri had a lot of good production to get 38 points on 324 yards. And Kentucky was nearly there and couldn't nearly match it up.
Nope. Yeah.
See, what interests me is the time of possession on this is so close, and it's just another indicator that Kentucky fumbled around with the ball so much. The red zone was just not good for them. It's just plain up, just no way about it. Other than that,
yeah, no, turnovers will kill you, especially in these conference games. So, So we'll move on to the Auburn LSU game. That won't spend a lot of time on this. Our friends Pa Cores, Small Time Republic, their team Auburn got crushed by LSU in Baton Rouge, 48-18. You can see the domination, 25 first downs to 18 for LSU, almost 600 yards offense total for LSU. About 10 more minutes of time of possession by the LSU Tigers. One turnover did not affect them, which was Jalen Daniels threw a pick for LSU. He was 20 of 27, though, overall, 325 yards, 3 touchdowns, and the 1 interception. He also ran the ball 11 times for 93 yards. Kyron Lacey for LSU had 4 catches for 111 yards and a touchdown, while Peyton Thorne for Auburn at quarterback was 12 of 23 passing and for 102 yards. So really anemic offensive production from the quarterback position from Auburn again. Really hurts this team, you know. And you're familiar with Peyton Thorne from being up there at Green and White, correct?
Yeah. I was hoping we could, yeah, we'll talk about it. It's just a painful memory. For anyone that doesn't know, Peyton Thorne was the MSU quarterback before he hit the portal and bailed. So you see, it's not working out well for them. 154 yards passing.
Mm-hmm. And part of that was the backup quarterback, which they do a two quarterback system type thing there in Auburn. So, oh, hey, Hungry, good to see you. Sorry. He's like, apologies, I'm a turkey lurkey today. Hugs. Yeah, we lurk away. We like lurky turkeys too. Hey, Thanksgiving. You got to work on the next Thanksgiving stream. Hungry, make sure you stay around for the end. The missus came up with the thing we were working on. JT does not know. Nobody else has seen it. We'll show it here first. Okay.
All right.
So we'll move on after this. Really not a lot to say of this game. LSU comes out, dominates this game. There's not, it just some of these games, the stats drive them. You really have a lot with it. But here, this is the game, my friends. This is the game that's got me having to kick my own butt a little bit. One of the problems I had with this season coming in, if you go back and look at my sports, I really need to see what I predicted and compare it where I end up this year of all years since I've had another year with doing this. I tell you, the first time through, I was so anti Napier that I came with Florida at 3-9. That's
really?
How negative I was with Florida. Well, then you had a Wisconsin quarterback, the Graham Mertz guy. I mean, I trash Wisconsin quarterbacks all the time. Thankfully, Lisa's not here to give me a hard time about that. But it's like Wisconsin is cheese and running backs. It's it's not. They're not. Oh no, snort a droop. But hey, stay with us as much as you can, my friend. But if not, hey, if you need to nod off, you nod off. We just appreciate you being here. This game, though, folks, I mean, this one has got me to have to really reevaluate my opinion of Napier to a degree. And because you can't deny they went on the road and won a game they shouldn't have won. This is a game that I do not think they should have won, especially at the road game against Kentucky where the defense didn't show up. Well, they still don't have much of a defense, apparently. But then again, it was Spencer Rattler that they were going against. Rattler was 23 of 30 for 313 yards on the day with 4 touchdown passes, hitting Xavier Legette 5 times for over 100 yards. But he also had a touchdown, an interception at the very end of the game that I'll talk about in just a second. But if you look, both teams amassed almost 500 yards offense, and Florida would have had over 500 yards offense had they not taken 31 yards of running backwards into the end zone and taking a safety at the end of the game. But Florida was limited to only 71 yards rushing in this game, but still managed to hold the ball for 32 minutes, about 5 minutes longer than South Carolina. South Carolina ended up committing 2 turnovers, one in the final minute that sealed the win for Florida. But you look at Graham Mertz, 30 of 48 for 423 yards, 3 touchdowns. Ricky Pearsall for the Gators had 10 catches for 166 yards and a touchdown. With a winning go-ahead touchdown. Dude, I tell you what, JT, this was a game of all games that I saw. So,
I I'm sad that I missed it, but I was very surprised at the final result being
I
that high of a score as it was. I did not anticipate that,
mhm.
but I had faith in Florida, if I remember
Well,
last
I'm
week's
glad
stream.
people have more faith in Florida than I have done this year. Actually, I've spent a lot of my time on the Tennessee Texas A&M game because that was a battle, that was a struggle, that was a heated contest. It was on roughly the same time. This game ended after the other one, and what's so funny, I got back just for the game-winning drive. To just in time, I was like, I kind of kicked myself in the butt, but it was one of those things that it's like you're so frustrated with your team. It's like, come on, stop it, and then with no defense. But Florida did rally. Florida was behind near the end, and they did come back and rally. You've got to give them some credit for that. They've not, other than the Kentucky game, they've not been blown out. And even in that game, had they just gotten the offense to show up earlier and not try to force the running so much, again, that's a coaching decision to where they kept falling behind. Who knows how that game might have turned out in the second half? Utah
Well,
was the same type of game.
and for all that effort, you still only have 71 yards to show for it,
Yeah,
right? It's not like you were hitting your head on the wall, but you still walked away with even 150 yards.
yeah.
The
And
under 100 yards is a failure if your
well,
team
especially for a
cannot
team that
total that
wants
on
to
the
run the
ground.
football. Supposedly, the way he wants to run the football and throw vertical, but they're playing a lot of more small ball West Coast offense. But to tell you, the team scores. The team moves the ball. They do get 28 first downs in this game. Like I said, almost 400 yards, over 400 yards passing. Now, see, I will tell you, they really probably ran for over 100 yards. Like I said, the 30 yards that they went backwards to run out the clock, they gave up a safety at the end.
Oh
It's an old
yeah,
school strategy that comes out of the rushing yards, unlike the NFL where it comes out of your net passing stats. So, um, but overall, I thought it was a really, really impressive win for this team to go up there. Now there's apparently a lot of turmoil up in South Carolina. We're going to see the standings in a minute, and they went from a darling after the way they ended last season when they uh, beat the living hell out of Tennessee. Then they upset Clemson at Clemson, and then fought Notre Dame to a very tough game in the Gator Bowl last year. There's a lot of unrest now up in Carolina, and we're going to talk about that in another place coming up soon. But then again, Spencer Rattler, instead of what I tell you what, coaching decisions, I'm telling you, Carolina got the ball back with under a minute, but it was probably about 50 seconds. It was not too bad. Carolina was out of the timeouts, but still, there's time, and they needed all. And that's the one problem with well, the game was 41-37 at the time, so a field goal would not have made a difference. But instead of taking their time, they kind of flung the ball down the field and threw it through the interception. It was like panic.
right.
So
But I mean,
hell
they're
to you,
college
Castle.
kids. They're college kids, right? And they're going to make those kind of mistakes. It's not the
Yeah.
NFL level of
Well, I think in
execution.
this case it was the coaching. I think the coaching did not give them enough play calling to where they could dink and dunk up the field.
Mm-hmm.
Like with your out patterns. I think they just kind of because it was on third down, and it was kind of like the first two plays were like trying to get it all back at once instead of trying to set it up. But hey, Castle, hell to you, popping in finally. Hey, listen, you're just that late, that last kernel of corn waiting to pop. So hey, good to see you. I hope that made sense. But anyway, all right. Everybody says hello to Castle. Any other thoughts with this game? This is a game that I really like talking about and was a good one for Florida, who has a bye week this week. So, any other thoughts on this one, JT? Or
Oh, sorry, I was on mute there.
I don't know.
Um, I just still can't get past those rushing yards. I know you said taking a knee can reduce that number, but if that's really what your front five plus your running backs and your halfbacks and fullbacks, all that, if that's all they can really do, stick to your passing game as much as you can, because it was obvious this team could not stop you.
Well, that's funny that because one of the talk of the local sports shows is that Napier wants to be running and long passes, and it's like the Utah game and even the Kentucky game. There was something of it seemed like they stuck with the running game when it was not working way too long, and so they dug a bigger hole.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when will the coach adjust to his talent. I mean, there have been some games where running does work early on. Okay, fine, but then when it doesn't, adapt. And I think that's a mark of a great coach is one that can adapt, in game and make adjustments. And
But
that's been one of my biggest problems with Napier is not adjusting at halftime or other things with a lot of these games.
no, I'm not a college coach, right? But I would say back to him. Okay, then get your team up 17-3 and then run the ball all you want because you have the room. Get yourself up a few scores, then run the ball. Run it all you want, run the clock down. Don't get yourself behind from the very beginning because that strategy is not going to win you games in the end.
Nope. You need to keep it close at some point. You need to keep it close and give yourself a fighting chance to come back. Like I said, but see, like I said in the Tennessee game, I fault him because a lot of Tennessee fans thought they did something big. I really thought Florida changed their offense in the second half of that game. They quit throwing on first down as much. They quit. They changed things noticeably, which allowed Tennessee to crawl back. Well, had Tennessee been able to convert fourth downs and not screw up and false starts and stuff, they could have made that a better game in the second half.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, but right. I'd say I think that's probably about all I come up with on this game. It's
a good game. The Gators get a well-deserved week off this week, and then this is the other big game last week. Tennessee outlasts Texas A&M at home, and it's more of a defensive struggle. Tennessee very, very evenly matched in terms of first downs, but surprise, the Josh Heupel offense barely hit the 100-yard mark passing. While Texas A&M throws for 223, but A&M, a team known for running, only runs for 54 yards. But then the Volunteers come out and run for over 230 yards. Time of possession was even. Turnovers 2-1 for Texas A&M. Jalen Wright for the Volunteers ran the ball 19 times for 136 yards. Max Johnson for Texas A&M was 16 of 34, 223 yards, but threw 2 picks. And also D. Williams for Tennessee, that's an error on my part, had a 39-yard punt return for a touchdown for the Volunteers. So Tennessee does hold this game at home. They beat Jimbo Fisher. And I'm going to talk more about where the league stands when we get to the standings. I'll hold more comments for that about the teams and coaches till then, since we're really at or beyond the halfway point of this season. It was a hard-fought game. It was a game of interest. Very low scoring, very sluggish, but not one of those ugly games that are hard to watch. But any other thoughts on this one, JT?
None other than when you see special teams put up points on the board.
Yeah.
You take those away because it doesn't really affect the stats that much, other than the final score. These two teams probably could have been tied going into overtime.
Yeah,
and not in a good way.
Nope.
Just say that.
Well, see, like Tennessee's known for throwing the ball. They only threw for 100 yards. Yeah, and there's the big question up there is there's a lot of fans that are tired of Joe Milton, the Michigan transfer, and he's not been as effective as your guy up there, Hendon Hooker, who's now on the Detroit Lions roster. It's a completely different team, but also he's got different receivers. They're questioning about, do they have that? Brew McCoy was one of their best receivers who got hurt. Now, do they have that number one stud receiver that can get open? It sounds like that they're struggling. Receivers getting open, and a quarterback that can make good throws. He really can make some good throws, but not result in a lot of points on the board. So not much to talk about in this game unless you're a Vol fan or an Aggie fan. But as an anti-Jimbo Fisher fan, I'm like, yay. Good old Rocky Top. Woo! And you never know. Come over to Rambling Canucks karaoke on Saturday nights. I might sing it if you want me to. It's actually a fun song to sing. What's so horrible, JT, that talk about rivals. I always like to play Rocky Top and on nauseam all week before Tennessee just to piss myself off. It's just
really
get in the mood. It's the mood setter. So, but it's good. So, and then Georgia, number one, goes on the road to beat Vanderbilt. The score is not as close as it was not. The game was not as close as the score indicates. 2 late touchdowns for Vanderbilt. Only not even still in single digits first downs for Vanderbilt. Georgia just completely dominating, 500 and a half yard, 500 plus yards. Vanderbilt barely 200, and Vanderbilt only 18 yards rushing the ball. 15 minutes difference of time of possession. The Dogs took over the Vanderbilt Commodores, and yet still survived 2 turnovers to 1. Carson Beck for Georgia, 29 of 39, 261 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Dejon Edwards for Georgia, 20 carries, 146 yards, and a touchdown. Ken Sills, senior quarterback for Vanderbilt, who's now been starting recent weeks over A.J. Swan, was 19 of 29 for 201 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Swan had committed so many interceptions and fumbles that I think he finally lost his job. But still, Vanderbilt did not have the ball that long. Just scored 3 times, but only 9 first downs. Any thoughts or reactions to this game?
Sure. So if I'm like the Georgia coaching staff here and I'm looking at this game and we don't have the numbers on penalties, which normally that doesn't matter. But when I know that my team is that much ahead of the competition, and in this case being number one in the country, playing a bottom team in your conference, you got to look for things other than, oh, we put up more points than the other guy. And I would look at penalty yards and I would look at turnovers. And to me, 2 turnovers against Vanderbilt is sloppy. If I'm looking for some way to get value out of that, why did we have 2 turnovers? Why did we get the penalties we did? Because it's not that productive to focus on, oh, we had almost 300 yards rushing on the ground, right? Because that team was obviously inferior to you. You knew that going into the game. Your defense did its job. But, 2 turnovers to me is not acceptable. And if I were getting my team ready for the next week, I'd be making them do some pain in their workout for those 2 turnovers.
Exactly. And 600 yards of total offense, and you only get 37 points.
Yeah.
So it's like you would think you'd be scoring up in the 50s.
Well, if they had left their starters in the whole game, and by all accounts,
they probably they did put the backups in later in the fourth quarter. Like I said, Vanderbilt scored late, but still, it's another classic Georgia. The last couple of years, they are the number one team. They have won back-to-back national titles, but in the last couple of years, they've also shown the propensity to start slow in games against weaker competition. That's why it was so significant that last week that they came out from the beginning and put the pedal to the metal on Kentucky from the very beginning, because Kentucky had were talking noise after they crushed Florida, and they were riding high, and then ran into a really angry Georgia team that hit them from the very beginning, smashed them in the mouth right from the beginning, and Kentucky could never recover. But then again, back in here, Georgia goes out the next week and kind of walks through the motions. So,
and that's the thing that really should help the coach measure what state the team is in, is what are my penalty yards, what are my turnovers, how fast do we put these points up? Because if the answers are not, very few penalties, no turnovers, points went up right away, that means your team has an issue with discipline coming out of the gate. It takes them a while to settle in and get down to business. And when you play a good team or a great team, that's when you start to sweat, because, hey guys, we have to actually play. We're not playing some high school team now.
Nope, I got you. Right. Absolutely. So everybody, we got 9 people watching us. Make sure you've hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't. We're on the crusade to 500, and we're also wrapping up football season. We are well behind, but we are now beyond the halfway point, looking at all the standards and stuff, and let's see, I think we got somebody new coming in I think it's Big Daddy MRI. Hello.
Oh, hail, Big Daddy MRI.
Feetsball, cool.
Yeah, he's a big personality over there on Overlord DVD streams.
Oh, cool. Well, good. Nice to meet you. Good to see you, sir. I appreciate you being here. Sit back, relax, and we're going to talk some more college football tonight. We'll probably bring in some, we'll see where this goes. But hey, welcome to the channel, and we do all kinds of stuff. We do all kinds of stuff from Fortnite to football and all kinds of crazy stuff. We even did Battlestar Galactica, the original series, the other night. So sit back, relax, everybody, make sure you've hit that like button. Make sure you're still subscribed to the channel, or if you haven't, we'd love to have it subscribe and try to hit our 500 mark. But hey, most of all, thank you for spending your evening with us and hanging out. And speaking of special, Stunning is here. Hey, Stunning, oi, the standard
Hail
greeting, my
Stunning.
friend. I need to have Canuck on him where we do one thing where we talk about just straight Canadian football while I'm talking about Canadians. So, but hey, welcome. So let's look at the status of the SEC. We're going to look at the status of the SEC, and we're going to take a look at where things stand with the national polls. And then I want to talk to you about your special football memories. Okay, as we enter the back. So as we come into the SEC standings, generally all the teams have played 7. Some have played 6, like Tennessee and Carolina. Vanderbilt has played 8 games this season so far. So the number of games can vary. It looks like everybody on the west side, most some are 6, some are 7. So hey, we go figure. No surprise at our leaders. Georgia in the East, Bama in the West. It's hard to call Bama a surprise because even if a lot of people, and I picked LSU to win the Western Division originally starting off the season, it was going to be between these two. So really, if we want to look at surprises, really in the East, we have no surprise with our leaders. We have a surprise to me that who's number 2 in the East? Dun, 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 dun. Go Gators! They're 3-1 in the conference. I am flabbergasted and stunned, and I'm very happy. I cannot believe that they are 3-1 in a conference. And yeah, one of them was against Vanderbilt, but so what? They lost to Vanderbilt last year for the first time in 30 plus years. So Missouri also is up there, just a half game behind Florida. You would not have expected Florida, Missouri to be up in this spot. Now Tennessee, you would have expected in that second spot. That's to be expected, but a lot of the preseason prognosticators were having Kentucky and South Carolina in those spots. But what we see is Kentucky as a mediocre 2-2 again with a very average quarterback, and South Carolina now is going down south 1-3 into the conference. Vanderbilt is where it was expected. So looking on the East is like kind of cool to see that the Gators are still up there. They do not play this week. But looking at this, 2 weeks, Ang, I'm coming after you, Ang, my other kid Ninja. I'm coming after you people in 2 weeks. Listen, the Florida Georgia series has been full of all kind of mysteries, surprises, and crazy stuff to ever happen. If Napier can coach like he's coached against Utah in the first game last year, like he did in Tennessee, as long as they don't make mistakes, as long as they don't have the special team miscues, the false starts, and they play a good game, that game against Georgia could be interesting. And I'm only going to say could. I'm not going to pitch it because that's what Kentucky made the mistake when they went to Athens, thinking that, you don't want to poke the bear, unless it's to help Snort Poopas stay awake. I say that in all dreading of like, I don't want to get my hopes up. But looking at this team, if the offense can keep performing the way it does, it could stand a chance against Georgia in 2 weeks. Any thoughts on that? I'm not sure how familiar you are with these teams.
In 2 weeks, I'm not looking that far ahead in the SEC, to be honest, yet. But I do think if you're looking at rankings here in the East,
and both
Georgia,
teams, by the way, both teams are off this week, I believe. Both Florida and Georgia are off going into that next game, that game in Jacksonville. So it's not like you're looking ahead. It's just you got 2 weeks to prepare.
Yeah, and so Georgia, I think, is going to stay at the top. Florida, Missouri, Tennessee, I think is going to be very, very intriguing to see how that sorts out in 2 weeks. Who wins that game pretty much decides their own destiny. If you're Florida, it really helps you out if you're Tennessee, and it puts pressure on Missouri to not drop one.
Well, in Missouri,
all of these teams can't afford to drop one at that point to get that number 2 spot.
And Missouri's a team that's come out of nowhere and surprised a lot of people. The fact that they're 6-1, 2-1 in the conference, and they lost that game to LSU at home a couple weeks ago. that was a surprise game that just they had a big lead. They were up 22-7, lost that lead in the before halftime, and it's a game they could have and probably should have won, but they didn't. Um, I just like I said, but see, Florida's got a rough road to hoe. They still have to play Missouri. They still have to play LSU also. And that game's on the
Yeah.
road. So there's a lot of pitfalls for Florida coming down the road. But honestly, as a Gator fan, as long as they play competitive against Georgia, I think at least you have a good game and they don't embarrass themselves like they did last year, where it's just like the last couple of years where you knew going in there's no chance. That's something. But it's like you said though, we'll have to see how all this shakes out. Missouri is one that you know will they continue to play like they do at this level, and that you don't know about. So, but a lot to be action and remains. And so, like I said, you got the surprises there at this point. Um, Kentucky and South Carolina just don't show enough spark. South Carolina could be in the middle of a free fall, but then again, last year they got hot at the end of the season again. So,
Yeah,
uh,
I think Kentucky and South Carolina have a ceiling of fourth in this in this division. I don't see them getting any higher than that, and they may not even do it. Um,
yep, it's
so
very possible. So, questions like Kentucky, the questions at quarterback, inconsistency, and South Carolina's their defense. I mean, they're constantly giving up tons of points to teams, and I mean they've got a quarterback that can play, but defense has been a concern for them. Their lines have been a concern. So, well, let's look at the West for a moment here. Like I said, as Alabama's temporarily half game ahead of LSU, we're at 11th ranked Crimson Tide, 6-1 overall. LSU's 5-2 with this. So with the loss at Ole Miss and the loss to FSU early to start the season off, uh, Ole Miss is still in second or third. For now, they did beat LSU, but they lost to Alabama again. Who they're chasing. So basically, Bama has to lose twice for Ole Miss to jump them. So and again, it's about beating the big and better teams in your division, followed by Texas A&M, Auburn, Mississippi State, and Arkansas. 3 winless conference teams in the bottom, which is expected. Mississippi State has a veteran team, but they're just
not
not
that
talented.
good.
Not talented.
Just not that good.
And Arkansas with KJ Jefferson, a lot of people, I liked him as a quarterback, but just 0-4. They had a lot of hope with Sam Pittman a couple years ago. His first season, everything was up and the high hopes. Had a great first season, and they've been really regressing and losing some close games too. Does not help. Auburn is the 0-3 that you expected, but it's not a bad 0-3. I think Mississippi State and Arkansas are the bad records. I think actually the worst one is probably Texas A&M, honestly. And we can explore this a little bit because Jimbo Fisher, I've heard some talk again this week that there's some talk about his contract and stuff now. That after the loss to Tennessee, that people are starting to really talk about that the boosters over there can come up with the money to buy out the contract. But that's also on a hill, like I've been saying. How many times do you buy coaches' contracts out? They bought up Kevin Sumlin's contract to get rid of him to hire Jimbo Fisher. They also had to help pay out Jimbo Fisher at FSU to get him to Texas A&M. And then the ridiculous amount of money per season that he's paid. But I've been saying since the end of last year, I expected him to be on the hot seat because you don't buy out contracts and you don't pay him what you pay him to end up even second year to year in the conference. I mean, much less third behind Alabama and LSU repeatedly to end up tied for last like they did last year, and they lost to Bama again. You're not paying a coach that kind of money to come in for mediocrity, are you?
You don't, but also, who are you going to pay and how much are you going to pay them? And what type of risk are you going to take to try to get over LSU and Alabama? That I think that's where the trap of some of these schools end up falling into is you end up opening up the checkbook and going with a riskier coach. And yeah, most of the time it will not work out. But if you play it too conservatively, your ceiling is third place. Um, and so it's risk reward, and I think they should keep him for another year as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
I do, because you'll end up looking like most of the other schools out there that wish they were in the top 10 every year,
Yeah.
and they're not, because they just can't be happy with the coach that they have. And
Yeah. Well,
anyway.
I'll be honest. I've said that with Billy Napier at Florida, and this is only second year. But see, I've judged it really early on with a lot of the crappy coaching. I mean, and see, I will say Jimbo's teams are pretty well coached. Most games they do have their meltdowns, but see, what I've seen with Florida is I thought I'd seen enough of the guy, and but maybe I'm wrong, and that's why you be patient and not so reactionary. But I don't think everything has to be a 10-year rebuild or every 5 years knock it down and rebuild it. I think we've seen models that show that does not have to be the way it does. I also think that we're seeing now with Deion Sanders up in Colorado that in spite of the early initial success, you can't judge a coach on a couple of games. You've got to
Exactly.
sit back and wait and watch. And I'd probably the opposite for me that I'll learn a lesson. I mean, I like being outspoken with my football, and I don't mind. I know I'm wrong at times, and I don't mind being wrong. I'd rather be wrong and the Gators win all day long. But there's just so much watching this team for 2 years has been very frustrating. And the games that they've lost were just cases where the coach, you didn't have these guys prepared, and time management and coaching issues that should not be happening with a coach, any coach at this level of football. You know, that's the
Yep.
stuff that drives me crazy. It's one thing to get beat by a better team or to get out whatever, but just the mistake stuff and having to settle for things. That's the part that I don't like. Um, but yeah, see. I tell you what, I think like I said, I understand what you're saying with that. I agree with the Jimbo situation. Is do you really want to pay that much money to get rid of a guy? I mean, he has won a national title. He has had success, but the thing is, you know, is it worth buying him out for that extent to get rid of a coach? But then again, here's the caveat: is be careful the next time the shiny new car is not the best one always, because you just
Right.
paid a Cadillac price for a Yugo.
Right.
So
Right. And here's the thing too. If you're looking to build this program, especially with portals, your reputation is everything. And you can't think of, oh, A&M might have won in the 80s or the 90s. You have
mm-hmm,
to look at what type of football has an 18-year-old seen. Has A&M been in anything for the
mm-hmm,
last 8 years? Because if they haven't, that 18-year, the 16-year-old that will play when they're 18 doesn't care about A&M because they have never won anything. So,
mm-hmm,
maybe you don't have to beat Alabama every year. Maybe you need to beat LSU and be second in the division every year.
mm-hmm,
And that will build on it long term. That's the only way you're going to build a program, is if you get into the higher and higher tier,
mm-hmm,
and you have to kind of grind your way up there. I mean, sure, if you're number one, that's great, but you need consistency at that number two spot to really have a shot at knocking out number one. And if you don't,
mm-hmm,
if you only have it 1 or 2 years, yeah, okay. But then, Alabama and LSU are still my first and second choices if I'm one of those players, right? So I think you hold on to them, and maybe it's not as beautiful as you want that season to be, but hey, you need to be realistic about what your program is and how you're going to get to where you want it to go. And I think
mm-hmm,
people get really impatient. And if you're winning enough games to be in the top third, changing
mm-hmm.
direction, you're more likely to hit the iceberg than you are open ocean, in my opinion. And I think the math would bear that out.
Right, right. I agree. So it's interesting. But any other thoughts on the West Division? Any other comments we have over there?
I just look at LSU and I think Notre Dame,
Oh
and
yes,
it
Brian
gets
Kelly.
me upset. It gets me upset, and we don't have the Hepburns here this evening
Yeah.
to
Well, you know what is interesting too. One of the other things we talk culture and stuff and all these things. Um, um, see, like Arkansas, years. Let's see. No, Mississippi State had Joe Moorhead. He came from Pennsylvania. He did not last long
Mm,
in Mississippi State. Uh, Brian Kelly last year, I tell you, and I think even some of my guests have talked about that. Last year's fine when he won and got to the SEC championship game, but what happens when they start losing? How long are they going to start staying with him? You know, because he's not a Southerner, he's not a Cajun, he's not from the area, and that's really something big with a lot of these SEC football schools. They're very territorial. It's
mhm.
very culture. It's very uh, within their own. Lane Kiffin does not fit into Mississippi, but he's the coach there. But because he wins more than he loses, because there's something there. But yet
Yeah.
the people in Tennessee look at him and hate him because he spent 1 year there and abandoned them for the Pac-12. Um, there's so many things with the coaching and the fits with their cultures. You said that Brian Kelly. It's like Urban Meyer never really fit in Gainesville. I'm sorry, wasn't like us down here. Didn't want to do the booster shows and all this other stuff, And there is I think a culture fit to a degree. Now,
Yes,
granted, winning solves everything, like it did in Meyer's case.
it
And what
does.
did last year for Kelly? But this year with the sloppy play, with losing a couple early games, if the trend continues, what do you? Because they got lucky getting away from Missouri.
Mhm.
They have not played well. Their defense has been down, and there's a lot of weaknesses in this team. So.
And the biggest disappointment for me on this list, just to kind of end my thoughts on it, is Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at it from the outside, if I'm going to root for any of these teams in the West, it's going to be that one, just because from an outsider's perspective, they are fun to root for. Um, you know, I, they're just a cool team, and to see
Mm-hmm.
this happen to them is really disappointing.
Yeah, and
No other no
Peyton,
other way to say it than disappointing
Peyton.
five different
Well, you would
ways.
think Peyton Thorne, with what he did at Michigan State, would have come in and actually helped them. But what I've seen is a quarterback that really does not look like he should be playing Division I major college football.
But
Now,
he
I
but
don't.
he ran up all
Uh,
kinds of records at Michigan
but
State, and
see, I don't know. But see, I don't know how much of that is lack of talent around him. To be fair to him, how much is lack of
mm,
talent around him in terms of receivers, line, and other stuff like that, or just maybe he's not that when he's in the SEC not as good of an athlete as he was elsewhere at the Big Ten.
it's tough to say.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, obviously you saw him play more than I've seen, so you've seen it when he's played really, really well. So, all right. Well, that's it. That's the SEC conference standings right now. I'm going to hold off on going into the. We still got to pick, so we've been having fun. Time's flying on us. So, but let's talk for a few minutes about football memories. What are your special football memories, and what is it about college football we talked about talking more time about this type of topic, but just in general for tonight, what is about college football do you love, and what attracts you to it?
Sure. So I have a lot of Michigan State University alumni in my family. So I have a picture of myself at 3, and my sister is 2, of me in an MSU football jersey, and my sister in the cheerleader jersey, or outfit. So it's always been in my blood. And then I went to that university as a student.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in it from probably my whole life. But my mom was an alum and a huge fan of the team. And in Michigan, your rival are Michigan, and Michigan State is your in-state rival. Now, that other school down in Ann Arbor thinks that Ohio State's their rival, and they'll say that only on the years where they think they're going to beat Michigan State, to try to just say, well, you're the cute team, that kind of a thing. But people are very passionate about that rivalry. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
just yeah, don't get caught on the wrong side of town with the wrong colors on, kind of thing. So for me, I've always loved MSU football, and as a
Mm-hmm.
student, I had a dorm that was shared with the football team. So they had their own special dining
Hmm.
room in our dormitory. The football
Yeah,
team was always running up and down the
The
halls. So
University of Florida, it was called Yon Hall. That back in the 80s, they
mhm,
had a whole thing. But see, I think that they got away from that. I think I'd heard that at some point, all that because of regulations and stuff,
mhm.
they got away from that type of thing. But I think they're able to bring it back now. But yeah, the football dorms and the football meal, the cafeterias just for the football players. Yeah, I know what you mean with that.
So and I lived at the end of a hallway, near a stairwell that had a glass kind of opening at the very, very top. So you had a
Hmm.
nice outlook over the
Hmm.
area. And I
Yeah.
woke up my first football Sunday, Saturday, sorry, at the university, and there was a field across the street from my dorm, and it was just all grass. I wake up on Saturday morning and it is filled bumper to bumper with tailgaters. And
Mm.
that's when I realized, okay, this is some serious stuff. I went to every single home game as a student.
Hmm.
Was not quite the paint yourself up super fan, but it was a pretty big deal for me. So, and I watched the end of John L. Smith and all the disaster that was, to the very high rise of going to the Rose Bowl. And I actually have a 2014 Rose Bowl 100th Rose Bowl anniversary
Wow.
championship mug that I'm drinking out of right now. That was
Hmm.
back when the Rose Bowl meant something,
Right.
and watched them go to the national championship soon after. Right, so um, I got to ride that train, and it was beautiful. Right,
Yeah.
so
Who was it? Was it Saban that was the coach at the time?
oh no, sir.
Oh no. Okay.
I
Well.
call him Nick Satan because he
Okay.
betrayed MSU. He betrayed MSU and left us with Bobby Williams, who was a terrible coach. Um, Terrible, terrible coach. And Saban went to Alabama. And so that gives me another reason to always want Alabama to lose.
Gotcha.
Always.
Gotcha. Definitely no love lost for Saban.
Um,
So
and then
was
I
it
guess my
well?
other memories, I did play high school football.
Well,
So,
did
you know,
Saban follow John L. Williams?
Saban, then Bobby Williams, then John L. Smith.
John
John
L.
L.
Smith. Okay.
Smith
John L. Smith in
was,
Arkansas. Did he go to? He went to Arkansas after Michigan State. Then I
yeah,
think.
yeah.
Okay.
After they got rid of John L. Smith, he infamously slapped himself in the face at a press conference after a painful loss. Um, he Mark D'Antonio came in. Mark
Oh,
D'Antonio
that's another
was
name.
the Rose Bowl and the national championship, and he has a controversial coaching legacy of his own because he was loyal to a fault, just
Hmm.
far too loyal. In his last 2 or 3 seasons, he really needed to change up his coaching staff, get some fresh
Right.
blood in there. And the last year or two,
Hmm.
instead of firing some of his assistants and coordinators, he just rotated them around. So the tight end coach would now be the
Uh,
defensive coordinator. It was like, okay, musical chairs, except I'm not pulling any chairs out. And
uh,
needless to say, you don't do well when you don't hire an expert in that role.
hmm.
And then he also kind of just ghosted the
Hmm.
university and quit after the spring game that year, and left them with only a few months to bring in Mel Tucker and from Colorado. And Mel Tucker got signed $90 million for 10 years. And I won't go into why he was unceremoniously fired this year,
Right.
but hashtag me too is all I can say. So,
Yeah. A lot going on with that. A lot of situation and supposedly investigation. So let the lawyers circle it out. But I know he's got a wrongful termination, like usually happens in those situations. So
yes, yes.
what? But when it comes to an actual game itself, what do you like about the college game compared to the NFL game?
Sure. So, first of all, more of these games in college football are all held outside, and to me, that makes for a better game. The
Hmm.
Lions are a dome team, and I
Hmm.
don't like dome teams. But you also have marching bands. You have much more like cheerleaders and just getting into the game, getting into the team. Um, the people that go to the school genuinely root for the team in ways that the NFL can never get.
Right.
Right. It's not as well. I mean, it is a product. College football is a product. Don't let them fool you. But it's a much more camaraderie based thing. And
Mm-hmm.
a student section will always have more enthusiasm for the game than an NFL game. I was in the student section while I was there, and it is just the level of enthusiasm you're not going to get anywhere else.
Nope, I agree.
You
That's why
just
I
won't.
like it. I like it. That's why I love even in basketball, March Madness. I mean, it's so much different than stupid NBA and things like that. It just, I mean, the pro game sport, the college sports always to me because of those factors. Uniform, you have tradition, you have chance, you have, I
Yes,
mean,
yes.
you have the bands, all that stuff. See, I hate when you go to a game and even the stupid colleges are doing it. They play all that damn pipe music, all that
Oh,
stupid
I hate
stuff
it.
over the
I
bands.
hate
It's
it.
like, stop that crap and let's just play the damn bands. Forget all the piped in music. Forget all the disco tech and all. Just let the bands
And,
play because that's what makes college football so special.
and MSU has an absolutely massive marching band, and they are loud, very
Yes.
loud, and they're good. They are very good. So thankfully, a lot of that music has been kept to the sidelines um, for that reason. But I
Right.
also feel like college football, the play is slower, and
Mm-hmm.
I actually like that. The NFL, when you watch it on TV, okay, but it is manicured on the TV. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of play you end up missing in the NFL if you're not careful. You really have to pay attention because the play is so much faster.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate slower play. You let the
Mm-hmm.
plays develop a little bit more. You try some different things that maybe you wouldn't do in the NFL, and they stop the clock on first down.
Yeah. No, I got you there.
Which I like. I like the college rules. I like college overtime far more than the NFL. Um,
No, I,
and the players have more spirit in it. I feel like now I'm not accusing the NFL players of not being a type personality, victory addicts because they are,
yeah.
but the desire and the spirit is there to play the game because they're not making 2 million a year to go on
Yep.
out on the field. So
All right. Well, any other thoughts? Well, let me. One thing that I do ask people usually too, specifically when they have college background, what is the well, what is the greatest game you've ever seen, whether it's your team or not? I kind of like what's the greatest game overall, but also two-parter is if it doesn't involve your team, what is the greatest game that you've ever seen that would it did involve your team, whether it's in person or on television?
oh gosh, if I had to pick the greatest game I've ever seen, um, that I've ever seen in person, it would have to be Michigan State, Oregon, back in 2014. Um, I went and saw that, got tickets at the last minute, pretty down close to the field. I didn't think we had any chance of beating Oregon that year because Oregon was, just amazing 10 years
Mm-hmm.
back, and they
Mm-hmm.
won. They won, and it was a high profile game,
Right.
Friday night to kind of open the season type thing. So it was all over TV. Um, just some of the best executed football I've ever seen. Now, the best game I've ever seen is a victory. Michigan State over Michigan. They had no chance, according to ESPN, to win that game. They were down. Um, Michigan was getting set up to kick a field goal, and the infamous he had trouble with the snap, and Michigan fumbles the football. Michigan State special teams recovers it, runs into the end zone for a touchdown, and wins with no time left on the clock.
Mm-hmm.
And the team actually jumped onto the guy that ran the football in and piled onto him so much that he broke his hip. um,
Jeez.
but that is one of those, your rival, you're so mad, you're so upset, you're about ready to smash your beer into the TV,
Oh yeah.
and then just to see that unfold. Oh, and then the radio station's playing, the play-by-play from the radio of the game, and just hearing the Michigan version of the sportscasters just implode as they can't
Yeah.
believe just what happened. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably going to never leave my mind, or any Michigan State fans' mind who ever watched that game.
Exactly. We love torturing our rivals. One of my favorite games was the last game I ever watched with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Florida was not good that year. They were they're okay, but they were middle of pack, 7-5, 8-5, that type of thing. Spurrier was the coach, and they had it's where they had Noah Brandeis as a quarterback who was like a walk on type thing, and Doug Johnson was a freshman. And it was like really early, but he was so inconsistent, you couldn't turn it over to him. It was so bad, but then Spurrier came up with the two quarterback rotation, like thinking the FSU stole their signs and this, that, and the other. And oh my God, FSU fans were quacking about the ducks that the Gator quarterbacks would throw and all this stuff. And I mean, it was merciless all week. But then that game was the biggest comeback. I mean, it was back and forth, big pass for set up a touchdown and a late Gator touchdown. Then FSU missed the field goal at the end. Really, probably one of the greatest games I've ever saw. And like I said, it was the last game I watched with my dad together. It was like such a memory to have as one of the games. I mean, there's been so many games, and I think we talked about maybe doing something, and that'd be a show to share a lot of those type of events, because I've got so many got memories and games with the misses, the kids, and everybody else that we can talk about. That could be a show of itself. So
Yes.
Exactly. So we're going to go ahead and move up. Thank you for sharing your background tonight. Thank you for sharing some great stories from what you've seen with football. So now we're going to go into the back half of this show as we wind up. We're going to take a look nationally at the rankings. Then we're going to preview a little bit the games this week and make our picks for those games this week. So thank you, everybody that's here. Thank you for being with us. Make sure you ask some questions if you want to, if you got any questions about anything. But we're going to go ahead and get going here with this and stuff. Yeah, and Masters is saying hello to Studding. Thank you for putting a comment in there, Masters. Good to see you guys. We love you, lurkers, too. In the AP Top 25, you've got 6 SEC teams remaining in the poll. I still wait for Florida to get back in there. If Florida beats Georgia, they could be back in. But only one team in the top 10, which is Georgia Bulldogs, still well ahead in the number one position, followed by Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, Washington, pretty much the same 5. Oklahoma and Washington flipped this week, so Washington's getting more love after knocking off Oregon this week. Amazing that Oregon only dropped 1 spot, losing to Washington on the road, but that's reasonable.
That was an intense game too.
That truly was, and that's a game that features Bo Nix as a quarterback for Oregon, who used to be the quarterback at Auburn, so transferred up there. Of course, the Beavers are number 12th in this poll at 6-1. They still control their destiny in the Pac-12, Pac-10 Pac-12 if they can keep winning out. We shall see what happens. In the last year of the Pac-12, Alabama's 11th, Ole Miss is 13th, Tennessee at 17, LSU at 19, and Missouri jumps into the top 20 this week at number 20 into the poll at 6-1. Looking at overall, of course, I'm biased to Beavers. They're there. Notre Dame's down to 15th, but they have moved up after losing twice. Utah is back up to 14. USC dropped 8 spots by losing to Notre Dame and a rout this week. Caleb Williams threw 3 interceptions. But then again, it's 2 weeks in a row. USC nearly got knocked off by Arizona at home the previous week in a score fest. So 4 new entries: Missouri, Air Force, Tulane, and Iowa into the top 25. Yeah, Iowa. Why ever? They can't score. Talk about paint dry watching. Anyway, JT, any other thoughts? Guys, I know you're a Big 12 guy. Any other thoughts with this poll and comments from a Big Big 10 perspective?
Yeah, if this were next year, the Big 10 would have 6 schools in still, because Oregon and Washington would be up there, and so they would occupy what is that, 3 out of the top 5 if we're talking next year's play.
Yep.
So that would be really
And
interesting.
4 of the top 7
Yes,
if you throw Penn
yes.
State in. So
Which just spells domination for those schools. However, next year they'll also start playing each other.
yep.
So I don't see that being a thing that can be easily maintained.
Right. No.
Other than that, I think Notre Dame is still drastically overrated. I don't think USC is that good of a team to hike you up that far. But hey, they have a large viewing audience.
Exactly. And
um,
UCLA barely stayed in the top 25 this week by losing. They lost and fell 7 spots just taking on just staying barely in the top 25. So let's look at the coaches poll real quick. It mirrors in a lot of ways the AP poll. Again, 6 SEC teams with Georgia at number 1. Alabama tied for number 8 with Texas, who they lost to earlier this season. Ole Miss at 12, Tennessee at 15th, LSU at 19, and Missouri at number 20. They were in the poll last week. 3 new teams: Air Force, Iowa, Tulane in the coaches poll. Beavers, Oregon State at number 13 over there. So, any thoughts, comments with this?
just that I mean, it is so similar. I
Mm-hmm.
think that what you'll see is Michigan and Penn State, Ohio State all have big games this week.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State and Penn State, only one can survive that unbeaten. So I think if Michigan does not blow out Michigan State and Ohio State wins, you could potentially see some kind of a leapfrog of Ohio State to Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
But if Ohio State loses to Penn State, I see them falling all the way down to near Alabama and Penn State moving into the top 5 easily.
Right. Yeah, exactly. See, in this one, you got 3 of the top 6.
Yes, yes.
Now, so, all right. So, all right. Well, let's take a look. We will look at the games this week. From that, this week's games, as I mentioned, Georgia and Florida are both off this week. It's a light week in the SEC. 17th ranked Tennessee at number 11. Alabama is the shining game of the week at the 3:30 CBS game. Volunteers go to Alabama in this series. Tennessee is coming in with a lot of questions. Still worried about their offense, the passing attack. The running game is shown to, when used, has been very effective, but does not generate a lot of points. So, Alabama is, in the mode of just scoring enough to win. It's not your normal Alabama offenses that have been the last few years. Definitely a little bit, slower, but a little more slogging. I guess is a good term to call it, is slugging through the wins and stuff like that. So it's one good thing though for Tennessee is their offense, their defense. The defense has been stellar for Tennessee, except for one quarter against the Gators this year. It's been very stingy this season. In this series, Tennessee trails this overall series. Alabama leads the series 58 wins to 39 for Tennessee with 7 ties overall. Courtesy of Winspedia.com. The largest margin of victory for Tennessee was 41-14 back in 1969. The longest win streak for Tennessee has been 7 games from 1995 to 2001, which was that era where they couldn't find a coach to replace Gene Stallings, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And then Alabama's largest margin of victory, 51-0, back in the great year old that JT was here for, 1906. And Alabama had won 15 in a row from 2007 to 2021, back in the post Phil Fulmer, or starting with Phil Fulmer days of the dark times for Tennessee. This series dates back all the way because they have not played every year over the course of history and stuff. But this game dates back to 1901, November 28th, 1901. It ended up a 6-6 tie in Birmingham, Alabama. Um,
6-6. Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
exactly. Any thoughts on this game coming into it? I mean, you don't have to do your picks. We're not doing our
Oh,
picks right now,
no,
but any thoughts?
I won't do my pick quite yet, but I will say I think this game is dangerous for both teams. An 11 versus a 17, as we saw in those two polls, it can be very subjective who's 11 and who's 17. And
Hmm.
Alabama was 8, I think, in coach's poll. So in Tennessee, I think was ranked higher as well. Um, those numbers don't mean the 11 is going to beat 17. It just means they're both good teams, right? And they're close enough where Alabama cannot sleep through this one. And I know the odds are pretty heavy on Alabama winning, and it's home in Alabama. I don't see it being a blowout. I just don't. I see Tennessee saying our series is here, or our season is here. We have to win this game. And like you said, it's a game that's had a legacy of over a century. That's going to make it personal to both of these teams, the way a deep rivalry would. I see
Right.
Tennessee coming in and surprising people. They may not win, but I just see this as unpredictable.
Yep, I agreed. This is the type of game, a series of it, that where you could go in and Alabama could just win big time. They struggle all year, they slug away and everything, and then you think that maybe Tennessee could get them. That they're vulnerable, and then they come out and just put a 40-3 on Tennessee. You never know, or Tennessee could come in and just play lights out from the very beginning of the game. But I do know that in Knoxville there is a lot of unhappiness with the quarterback. He doesn't run enough, but then now they run a bit more last week, but they don't score enough, and they want the big passing attack like they did with Hendon Hooker last year. But again, a different type of quarterback, different receiving core, just so much different when you're mixed with it.
And I think that's a little, the fans in Knoxville might not appreciate this. I think that's a little petty. If your quarterback throws 40-yard passes or 4-yard passes, if you're winning
Uh-huh.
and they're contributing to that in a positive way, don't pick on the college kids. I know people say, well, a 20-year-old isn't a kid. In terms of discipline, experience, maturity, any college player versus the NFL is still a kid. And keep in mind that especially a redshirt freshman who might be 19,
Mm-hmm.
they're not, I mean, come on.
Yep.
They're going to make mistakes like a kid, more like a high school player than a professional.
Yeah.
So be happy with who you have.
Well, yeah, I tell you, they ought to be happy they got a coach that wants to stay there. That's the thing is,
Mm-hmm.
I think if
Yep.
they'd be patient, Tennessee could be really a dominant factor in the East for many, many years. Well, of course, the East is going away, but with Josh Heupel and who's a college coach, he's geared for college. Does not seem to be any desire for the NFL. That's what you need to want, with what you want. I mean, we see what happened with Florida with Dan Mullen, flirting with the NFL, and the next season they go in the tank, and you've seen it with Saban. Oh, the Saban, when he finally got to the point where he was going to stay in college, it changed. It was different, and it stabilized things. The whole thing. Look at Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin. And I did say Kitten because that's a local thing down here. He's been a journeyman. Popped to Tennessee to dump them for USC. Had his issues at the Los Angeles Raiders. I mean, he's been all over the place. Does he really fit in Oxford, Mississippi? I don't think so. But there's also talk. Not only did he flirt with another team, he flirted with Auburn. A conference in division rival is who he flirted with, not just the NFL. Which, of course, we have that with the Harbaugh up at Michigan. Every year it comes back to, is he going to the NFL? I'm sure you think the good riddance. Go for it. Don't let the door hit
Yes,
in the butt.
please, please, please.
uh,
Well, and I'll talk about that maybe at the end here if we have time.
okay. All right. Well, we'll move on because that's the big game of the week. These others really are not. These games are just conference, and they've lost their luster. Mississippi State, Arkansas battle, 2 winless in the division teams and in the conference teams. One will end up having their first conference win this season. Both very disappointing teams on the heel of what they did last year. Ole Miss goes on the road to the Plains and faces the Tigers. Again, We know Auburn's weaknesses
Disappointing.
offensively, ability to score
Hmm.
consistently. They can play some defense. They gave Georgia a good challenge, so don't write them off yet. Being at home against Ole Miss because they almost beat Georgia. You never know what a few turnovers will do. Maybe a special team score or block. Ole Miss, which Ole Miss comes out, is it the team that runs and throws the ball effectively, or Jackson Dart scores, or is it going to be the one that can barely put up any touchdowns? So we have Army at LSU 19th. That's a paycheck game. Army coming in to collect a pay, well, like the government needs a paycheck. But anyway, LSU
Yeah,
had a game to fill on the schedule, so we get to see somewhat of an. I don't think they run the triple option wishbone anymore, though. They're sort of slightly different. They do throw the ball a few more times than they used to, but not much. So
and Brian Kelly's had experience playing Army and Navy
yeah,
at Notre Dame, so it's
yeah,
not
because
like this is a new experience for him.
no,
Now, I believe the
because
last
he
time
could
these
have
two,
easy wins, right?
well, yeah, because that's what Notre Dame always needs anyway. Um,
There you go, JT. Set you up for that one.
I did a little bit of research on this game, and the last time these two teams played was 1931.
Wow,
So it's been a while, but like I said, Brian Kelly has experience playing
wow.
that team, and so it's not like
Mm-hmm.
it's some weird matchup. But
Yep,
yeah.
yep. Well, the last game in the conference this week, the South Carolina Gamecocks on the road at the Missouri Tigers. Well, I tell you what, expect plenty of points in this one, folks. South Carolina put up 39 on Florida, has scored a lot this year with Spencer Rattler, quarterback, but has not been able to show any defense. Missouri has no defense either. They've been putting up the points, so expect a lot of points in this game. The question is, maybe this is a game who has a ball last will win. But see, this is a game like for a team like Florida. You might want a team like Missouri to lose this game to get some breathing room. Of course, South Carolina, if they're going to salvage a season, needs desperately to win this game because it's a conference game. It's a division game. You can't keep falling
Hmm.
further back behind the teams you're chasing. So, any thoughts with this one, JT?
In previous years, even at the beginning of this year, I would have said that this game was probably a snooze, and Ole Miss at Auburn would be the one to watch, but they seem to be inverted. But
Mm-hmm.
Missouri needs to get things done here. Like you said, you don't want to lose a divisional game that puts you back two in some cases, right? So
Right.
Missouri controls their own destiny still in the East, right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they're in the East. Um, rather, yeah. Sorry, I'm getting confused East and West on these
I know. Well,
schools,
next year it
but
will not matter. Next year it will not matter.
mhm.
So they go to the big 18 team scramble format with the top two uh,
But
doing their thing.
if they want to matter against Florida or against Tennessee, they have to win this game
Mm-hmm.
because you're not getting a slower, underhanded pitch to you outside of maybe Vandy than this all year. So they have to get that done.
Yep, absolutely. So, all
And
right.
hail to Mikey Sue's
Hey,
four.
Mikey, Susie 4. Yay. Hey, you got Auburn upsetting Mississippi. Good to see you, Mikey. That's that. Like I was just saying that after watching what Auburn did to Georgia, they took advantage of a couple early turnovers deep in Georgia territory. You never know. I mean, it could be. It's a rivalry game. You never know what will happen. I don't expect it, but then again, I didn't expect Georgia necessarily to go in there and get in a slugfest with Auburn. But hey, Ole Miss has shown games where they've gone on the road and have not finished well, have gotten slow starts, have not produced points, and end up making games very difficult or actually losing them. So okay, Masters. Once we finish, could you explain the league system to me? How teams come to the NFL? Players are okay. Wow. All right. That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost a streaming of itself, but we'll try to get the Cliff Notes version of that. So, all right. So South Carolina, Missouri. That's two games to watch this week: Tennessee, Alabama, South Carolina, Missouri. Don't Mississippi State, Arkansas. Unless you're a fan of the team, there's no point in watching. But Ole Miss and Auburn could be, but not likely. I think, but you never know. Hey, just it's there's not a lot of action in the conference this week. A very off week. So
True. True.
and Mikey says he hopes so. Yes. Okay. All right. So now we get into the pick part of it, which we are also going to talk about. My guest 2 weeks ago, MC Wally,
Ooh.
was 6-0, and I was
Congrats.
5-1. Yes, he won that
Congrats.
week. I still have a 6-game lead on the guest so far. Remember last week we did not pick games. I just talked and things, and so I need to. We've got some. We've got to update our grid here a little bit too. So I think but overall 50-11, 44-17. Here we go, and we got this week with JT Kirk. After week 7 overall, no picks. Dadman fan bye week, even though I had a show. We just kind of took it easy and just had fun talking football.
So do you feel rested coming off the bye?
No, because I more than picked up a lot of stuff with all the other non-football stuff I've been doing. You want to see my schedule next week? Gee, Manetti's. And I got an appearance of another channel tomorrow night. I'm not saying what yet because they've not made an announcement. So I've got something else tomorrow night. Then the all-day streaming Rambling Canuck at 1 o'clock Eastern, 12 noon Central on Saturday, where we're going to play Axis and Allies. So, but remember, this is not a gambling site. This is not for gambling. If you try to use me for that, you're on your own. You deserve to lose it. We do not use points necessarily. Well, guests can use whatever they want to. Methodologies. We had people do methodologies. Daisy Blossom used cats. Like the team with the best cat mascot. The Misses used marching band uniforms. Squeaker used cheese. So Ash used dice rolls and put them. It's just, and then Mark was scientific with everything. So you have different ways, and that's what I enjoy. So JT, when we get started with your first pick, just tell us how you picked your games tonight. Okay.
Sure.
All right, because it's the beauty is the methodology. Because a lot of these people were always nervous to come on. They don't know football, but you know what? I don't care. It's not about the thing. It's about fun and having fun. And actually, I found out people know more about football than they let on. And a lot of them are the ladies. You go back, watch my stream with Daisy Blossom today. She had some nice stories earlier this year. You watched last year with Squeaka. You learned some things about Squeaka and football, and they know some stuff. So exactly. So
you've had great guests on every week up until me. So I'm sorry for breaking your chain.
You're a great one. You're a great one, JT.
You're a great one. Lisa. Hail to Lisa.
Oh, hey, Lisa. Hey, good to see you. Hey. Oh, you've been lurking. Yeah, well, thank you for lurkers. We always like lurking and appreciate it, but we always love hearing from you because then we know the food pictures are coming soon.
So, yeah.
Exactly. So
she had a beautiful late blooming rose picture that she posted up on X/Twitter today. I was surprised, but no, it was nice anyway.
Yeah. See, when Lisa lurks, it's like the universe is off because you're waiting. Wait, why is she so quiet? And it's like, where's the food pictures? Where's those pretty garden pictures and stuff? Yep. But hey, glad you made it in, Lisa. Good to see you. All right, JT, you can tell me how you picked this game. Tennessee at Alabama, the big game of the week. You took the Crimson Tide.
Yes, I did. And so when I look at these teams and I look at these games, and I do this for the NFL as well as college football, I look at things and kind of build an intuition or a gut feeling off of them. But I try to look at stats and try to build a gut feeling off of that. So when I looked at this, I said, okay, who are the last 5 teams that they played, both teams? Where did they win, home or away? How did they win? By that, I mean point spread. And the teams that they're playing, was there a rivalry? Yes, no. And based on that, I've tried to build the quality of the loss or the quality of the win. And from there, I look at, okay, are these two teams rivals? Yes, no. And then who is at home and who needs the win more? And from there, I kind of weight them in my mind rather arbitrarily. So you can kind of, you could summarize it and smell it as kind of BS or reading the tea leaves, however you want to do it. But I try to look at the stats and say, okay, I'm not throwing at a dartboard here. I want to try and see what the trajectory of the teams are. Right. So I picked Alabama. I would much like them to lose, but I just think that Tennessee going on the road, I know it's not a long drive, a long commute. Um, I just don't see them coming up with it in the amount of time that's needed. I think
Hmm.
they'll end up fighting from behind or giving Alabama too many chances at the beginning, and that's what's going to end up eating them. Um,
Hmm. Yep.
I'd be interested to see how the run game works, but I don't think it's pivotal to Tennessee's success. I think the stubbornness of the coach for Tennessee is what's going to do them in to
And
that
that
slow
that
start, and it'll hand it right to Alabama,
well, that
unfortunately.
was a factor he admitted to in, I think, the Florida game, is that they stuck with us. They should have changed, but they didn't,
Mhm.
with the short passes instead of trying to run against a three-man front. There, that's always a problem with coaches, is unwillingness to adapt or change in the game. So, that's always a danger spot. Like I've said with Napier, part of his problem is the same thing. Am I going to keep running the ball into the line of scrimmage even though we're 14 points down, and in the past works, but I'm going to keep running the ball in the line because I want to be a running coach? No, you got to be willing to adapt and change it as the game progresses. Um, yeah. So I'm going to hit Mikey's here before I'm going to start a couple of these comments, because we got some great points. Nice masters, masters. That
A la Moraine, Bama.
Alamarine. That's what it is. Okay, God, Alamarine. Oh my, where's Mark? But okay,
Yeah, I know. We need that
uh,
cutaway.
we need to put that in their clubhouse chat tonight. Al Alamba Brain Bahama. Yeah, you got to make sure that's in the chat tonight. So, all right, I'm see. This is a game that early after the last season, I early on picked Tennessee to win the SEC East. I thought Georgia would be down, Tennessee would be up and rising. But then, like I said, how I picked Florida to be so bad, and then I thought about it and picked them to do better. Well, kind of what I had second thoughts with Tennessee, and a lot of it's about Joe Milton as a quarterback. And that
Mhm.
proved itself against Florida. It proved it. He made some great throws, but then he went in a tank and went hidden. And they've struggled offensively this year, much more than they did last year. They are more running, they have more defense. But see, this is a game that early on, and probably in my preseason picks, I had Tennessee winning this game. But after what I've looked at, I go with Alabama at home. Saban's experience, Alabama. I mean, look, they Texas A&M. That was a perfect chance for Alabama to get beat at Texas A&M. They didn't. They survived. They won. Uh, they've Ole Miss comes in, they kick their ass. It's Alabama and Nick Saban. I don't think Tennessee's quite there yet as a team, complete. Um, and I look at Alabama winning this game at home. Jalen Milroy is not the best and most stat pretty quarterback, but he's effective. The one
Mhm.
game that they did not play him, the team struggled and barely beat um, South Florida, which should not have happened. So I agree with you. We're on the same point with that one. All right, so let's go to the next game. Mississippi State or Arkansas. You took Mississippi State. You took the Bulldogs, the Cowbells on the road. Any particular reason?
I still am sore about John L. Smith
Oh,
in Arkansas, which kind of, well, I'm glad they took him off our hands, but I'm still kind of down on them. Mississippi State, they lost to Alabama, they lost to South Carolina, and they lost to LSU all right in a row. But they did a whooping on Western Michigan, my MAC team of choice,
yep.
pretty convincingly. And so I think Arkansas has lost all of their last five, and some of them were close and some of them weren't.
Yeah.
I have no faith in that team. I just have no faith in that team to do anything correctly.
Yeah.
And that's where I went from it. Not to mention Jefferson, I think, is their starting quarterback.
Yeah. KJ Jefferson. Yeah.
I looked him up. He had something like 5 or 6 interceptions on the year already.
Yeah.
So that's going to be wild. That's more than the average in the SEC. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think the favorite in a certain city is probably Arkansas. I don't care.
Yeah.
I think Mississippi State has at least some hope for something this season somewhere.
And they did. They went on the road. They challenged at South Carolina and Columbia. They scored
Hmm.
30 points. They had one of the best outputs of the day of the year. Will Rogers is still a talented quarterback, and he is very it's a year of change because unfortunately, I talk about coaches wanting to change. I believe this coach came in. He's trying to undo the air raid offense of Mike Leach, who passed away at the end of last season, and he's trying to do it in 1 year. Well, they've run into problems because they were built in a different format,
Hmm. Yeah,
and trying to overnight change a team has dire ramifications. Go with what you can, be willing to change. But I still in this game, KJ Jefferson is a talented quarterback. It's like you expect him to do a good job, but he's turned the ball over a lot. There's been a lot of people down on him this year, especially since he's a senior and or I think he might be a junior. But either way, he's been around long enough to not be as sloppy with the ball. But I still will take the Pigs at home in this game because this game could go either way for either point. But I will take the home team in this one. So.
sure.
Uh, we got Ole Miss at Auburn, but before that, I got to say that Master says I don't know about that, but what I know is that my Ole Miss always comes in to kick my ass. So there you go. That's a great one.
I
So
did
you
not get that until you read it, Dad. Man, I read his comment 2 or 3 times, and I was like, "What? Old Miss?"
delivery. Sometimes the delivery and
Anyway,
comedy is about hearing it, the auditory to go with the visual. So, but Ole Miss, you take Ole Miss at Auburn, all right? Any particular
yes, I
reason?
do. I'm trying to bring up my. I got game notes on each one of these. Ole Miss at Auburn. Auburn's lost 3 in a row. Now, granted, it was to A&M, Georgia, and LSU, but I think the only one they were ironically close at was home with Georgia. The ones on the road, they did not do well. And meanwhile, Ole Miss has won 4 out of their last 5, and that loss being against Alabama on the road. So I think their production is pretty good. Their quarterback has not made a lot of unforced errors.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't see much to say about this game other than it's disappointing that Auburn is not ranked and has not won a game in the conference.
I
Five and
agree.
one is impressive at this point in the year, and being 2-1 in the conference is a good look. I think just looking at that record, yeah, it's on the road, but
Yep.
I think this is probably the easiest road win to call
Okay.
on of the week here.
I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that. Just Auburn, the lack of offensive ability. Like you said, Peyton Thorne may have done some good at Michigan State, but it's definitely not apparent here in Auburn. And a lot of that may be due in the roster, lack of talent on the roster. I know that
Mhm.
when they played Georgia, there were comments by the announcers about the weak Auburn receiving core and things like that. But still, you got to some of his throws physically have not looked good this year quite a bit, and it just as Ole Miss has got too many weapons between Jackson Dart, Quinshon Judkins, and their wide receivers. Just
Mhm.
this. I think Ole Miss is loaded, and Auburn will need turnovers, special team errors, things like that, like happened with Georgia, to keep this game close. If they keep it close early, then there could be a chance of a dogfight, but I still think that this one is going to be quite. I think should wrap up to be an early easy win for
Yes.
Ole Miss on this one. But
Yeah.
but you never know. That's what happens when you play the game, and if you take a look down on somebody too much. So next game, we're not going to really spend any time on because man, we are at 2 hours now. JT, this has flown by way
Oh,
so
wow.
fast tonight. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Exactly, but we're left to two because I want to spend a little bit more time on the last game because this one is LSU. Army is at LSU. You take LSU. I know it
Mhm.
pains you because of Brian Kelly, but the Tigers should roll at home with this game against Army.
Out of the 3 service academies, I think only Air Force is ranked.
Right. Yes,
and
they
and
just
the Air
entered.
Force is not the Army, so no, easy enough.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. So we get to South Carolina, Missouri, and in this game you take Missouri. Any particular reason?
Well, it's at Missouri, right? Let me get my notes for that one going around. It's at Missouri. Missouri only lost to LSU, and 49-39. Yeah, okay. It's not the closest game, but it's not certainly not a blowout.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the team is hungry. They control their own destiny, and they have a bad, frankly, just a bad opponent
Yep.
coming in. The only two teams in the last five they beat were an out of conference opponent and Mississippi State.
Mm-hmm.
They, I mean, they almost beat Florida, but Florida's been struggling too, and that was at home, right? So
Yep.
I just don't see South Carolina with 1-3 conference, 2-4 overall record, bringing much to the table. Just yeah,
Yep.
it's hard. This one was a hard one that was hard for me. Other than just saying record, okay, they're going to win.
Mm-hmm.
I do think Missouri's having a special year for that school,
Mm-hmm.
and so any team that rolls in like this that's got more flaws than they should at this point in the season is not going to come away winning. They're just not going to. What's more, it's a pretty long road trip going from South Carolina to Missouri. I know they leave a few days before. Still, you're moving time zones. That's hundreds of miles
Yeah.
away. That does have an effect. Okay, especially in college where you have to
Mm-hmm.
pretend to be a student
Yeah.
for most of
I
these
gotcha.
guys. So
Yep. Okay. Good points. Good points. You raised some things. I know Florida has always historically struggled in the on the road at Missouri, especially if it's an early 12 o'clock game. South Carolina, though, even though they're struggling, did have the same situation last year, but in the season, like I said, ended up winning the last two, surprising Tennessee, beating top 10 ranked teams, Tennessee, and then Clemson on the road. So this Gamecock team is talented. They have plenty of offense. Question is their lines and their defense. And Missouri, can they, you know, play defense? And this, like I said earlier, should be a high scoring game, should be a fun game to watch. But I think at the end of the day, I'm going to stick with the home field advantage in this particular game.
mhm.
Missouri challenged Georgia last year, led into late in the fourth quarter. They played tougher and stingier at home. The game against LSU, they had a huge lead early and then just collapsed. But it's not a bad. I agree with Missouri in this game. So,
And you look too at total yards, which I
mm-hmm,
know is a very aggregated, but I believe telling stat. They're pretty close with total yards. South Carolina with 410, Missouri with 446. But what I also looked at was yards allowed,
mm-hmm,
and the Gamecocks allowed 451 yards.
right,
Missouri only 345. So you've
yep,
got over, well, you've got about, well, it's about 110 yards difference on
mm-hmm,
what you're allowing. So that tells me, strength of defense. Yeah, yeah. I just think again, Missouri.
yeah, absolutely. So, all right. Well, that's it for the picks for this week. JP, thank you. Let me pull this down a second. I want to see what our next screen is before we go to close up. I did want to go back and talk a couple things. So, Mikey Susie Ford said, I know that they're not in the same conference, but really disappointed with the ASU Sun Devils this college football season. Yes, because, well, they had fired Herm Winningham last year, and so now they're having to deal with new coaching changes and stuff. Also, they got Rashada, this quarterback who had this NIL deal with the Gators, who ended up did not decommitted from Florida and he ended up at Arizona State. It was kind of a weird choice with that, but NIL deals strikes bad, which actually may have ended up better for Florida. I think in some ways, looking at it, but Graham Mertz has become a surprise. But yeah, I would definitely understand that. Definitely. So Arizona State has had a great history and great pride, like Jake Plummer as the quarterback and stuff. And just it is sad to see a team like that, especially if they're your team, falling on hard times. So, and there's one other that I wanted to talk about right quick. Oh, here. Okay, well, this is a funny one. Master says I can easily see a successful series here on the channel. Football for soccer heads or football versus stupid Germans. So there we go. But on a more serious note, once we are finished, guys, can you explain the league system to me? How teams come to join the NFL? How players develop and become pros? It seems so different. Okay. First of all, how teams join the NFL is the league itself has to decide it wants to expand. Then it puts out a call to various cities, and then in each of the cities where they get ownership groups to put together financing deals, stadium deals, all this stuff to make it lucrative for the league. Then they would decide how many teams are going to expand by. They usually try to keep it even, and then the ownership groups go make their pitches, and then they unveil who the teams are, and then they award them by city. Now, there's really no direct player development for the NFL. Unlike even Major League Baseball, where they play the minor leagues that feed up to the major league teams, there's no such system in NFL officially. It's pretty much the NFL. You either make the roster or you don't. Some of it is viewed as college as a feeder system in a way, because eventually the next year after the season, the NFL teams go and they draft players. And those that are not drafted, that are eligible to play in the NFL, they can sign to free agent contracts, try out for the teams. So there's really no development. What has changed a little bit last year that started is you had the reinvention of the XFL and the USFL that came in for spring football. Again, not direct NFL development league, let's say like in soccer, where over in the European leagues, you have your soccer, where you have your developmentals and they move up to different levels. And oh shoot, JT, you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hold on one second. My computer. Hold on. Give me a second. My computer. Damn. Some Java update thing came. I don't know if you're hearing dings, and it's like, holy crap. But anyway, but whereas you have them and they feed people like either in baseball or maybe over in soccer, you don't have that directly here in the NFL at this point. Or like in Canada, I think there's like some that are tied in that way. You don't have that in NFL. Basically, they come in as free agents or draft picks. They basically have to make a team. Is that a fair way to describe all of that?
I would say so, yeah. And the way that the teams are arranged today is historical. The AFL and the NFL, which are now conferences, I believe they were separate leagues at one point, right, Dadman?
Which ones?
The AFC and the NFC,
yeah.
the conferences were
the AFL and the
leagues.
NFL were two separate leagues, and then they merged. That's the whole thing. Modern football, you hear them talk about the merger. Klobby is a great person to talk about the merger in the Hall of Fame and that stuff too. But yeah, it was the Super Bowls now are post merger with those leagues, because there have been many pro football leagues in the U.S.
And you have 32 teams, right? So if you want to add new teams, which they did a few years ago, you have to find a market and have a billionaire basically create the team. And then the NFL has to vote your charter in as a team. So there's a representative from each team that sits in the NFL board plus a commissioner, and you basically have to be inducted. And so only the super wealthy, of course, are going to be able to get a new team going in. And so expansions are quite rare. But the NFL team license, I guess, as it were, is so valuable that if you somehow were losing money, that team and that license is going to another city.
Right. And that's what we get. We have the LA Raiders, the Oakland Raiders that just moved to Las Vegas. We had the Los Angeles Rams that moved from San Diego up to Los Angeles. So yeah, it is a thing. There's always a threat with Jacksonville being moved because of being a small market, and if the fans don't support it, it's just always a threat. Even talking about going to London. So Master said they had 3 teams up, 3 towns. You see, yeah, we don't do that. It doesn't deal with your players, your rosters between leagues and teams, and basically you have the same teams every year in the NFL with that. So and see, Master said they have an investors law that does not permit investments over 45%. Well, see, that is not here in America, because basically you want your majority owner not lose control of his team. So your primary owner is going to have to have 50 plus 1% so that he has control. Um, but like JT was saying, you get groups of people coming together under a main investor. What happened with a couple things years ago, when the was the last, I know that they've expanded with the Texans and stuff like that, but
In Jacksonville.
the
Yeah.
last real expansion I thought was a true expansion was Jacksonville and Carolina when they came in
Yes.
back in the mid '90s.
Yes.
What they did is, because St. Louis was in the mix. Well, St. Louis got Stan Kroenke, was their money man late at the end because they needed somebody to come in, a billionaire, like you said. In Carolina, it was the Denny's owner, Richardson. And then they got in Jacksonville the little known Wayne Weaver, who owned Shoe Carnival and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. So that's Shah Khan is not the original owner, it was is Wayne Weaver. So that's kind of how that works. Like JT was saying, you get all these little investors, but you got to have the one big money guy, the one guy that is the voice, and he's got to be able to control it. So you don't want a minority owner, because if you own less than 50%, all your minority owners could gather up and gang up on you and outvote you.
And many of the teams are single ownership.
Right.
And so
some
like
are family oriented
yes,
too.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
family owned. If you look at the Detroit Lions, they are owned by the Ford family. They have nothing to do anymore with Ford Motor Company, even though they're friendly with one another. Descendants of Henry Ford have passed ownership of the team down from one person to the next. Now, that doesn't mean, well, it's complicated, right? Because when you pass on that inheritance, you have to pay inheritance taxes in the U.S., and something that's worth $600 million or more is going to be quite expensive to pay taxes on. Because how do you come up with 1 to 200 million in tax on something
Right.
like that?
Yeah.
Dad, man, you're the accountant guy, right? You might have a better idea about all those details than I do.
Look, I
But
run from taxes. I can barely function when it comes to I like going into the financial stuff and the financial statements, and that's where I do. But yeah, everything's tax ramifications. You know, your states, your trusts. I mean, you look at. I mean, because whenever you have, like in baseball, when the owner dies, it's like it becomes all the lawyers and accountants uh, make all the money, because it gets into who owns what, how does it pass down from family to family. You have the estate tax consequences, because
mhm.
all that passes down to the generations after. That's where I believe a lot of this stuff, when it's family, is done through estates and trusts and things like that, because of the wonderful complicated American tax structure. um that so yeah, it's
and
very complicated how you get into that.
and the way that a lot of this hand down stuff is done is some of these owners will have more than one professional team by the time they finally pass,
Yep.
and they'll give one to one kid and one to another kid. And if they can't do that, a lot of times they won't try
Mm-hmm.
to. The successful ones will give it
Yeah.
to just one of the
Well,
kids,
and the
and
tax
so it's
structure,
darn near monarchical at that point.
the biggest problem is the tax structure, though. Because the
Mhm.
kid that inherits it is going to get all kinds of tax burden imposed onto them, because of the way the American tax structure is set up. And that's why a lot of times that they try to go into estates trust and blind trust, all this type of stuff that are ways to shield the individual from the taxes. And
Right,
it's
right.
crazy to see how it goes.
But that means
That's not like
ownership.
that. Yeah, Texas and Mexico easy. Just doesn't pay. Oh, and hey, Masters, listen, invite your friends, neighbors, and everybody to come in. That is a brilliant question. I keep trying to. Those are the questions I love. That is such a great question. Thank you for asking, because I know we call it college football, but one thing with all my sports ball is I love teaching and talking to people about things. And this was a wonderful question you've asked tonight, uh, and gave us an opportunity to, with a knowledgeable guest like JT Kirk, explore something like this. And I really appreciate it. And all my other sports shows, even when I do just college or do the NFL and I'm talking scores, I like questions like this, and I welcome them any and all times. And if I can answer it, I'll do my best. If not, I will either fake it, or I'll say, hey, I'll get back to you. So the key of all good auditors is I'll get back to you, because we don't want to give a specific answer. So it depends. Yes. So By the way, we do have Thursday night football on, and the last I saw was that the Jacksonville Jaguars lead the New Orleans Saints 17-9, and wow, looks like it's a bit of battle of turnovers for a bit of this game, but it looks like the Jaguars just got another turnover from New Orleans, so it'll be fun. Well, JT, thank you for being here with me tonight. I appreciate your help and for being here.
Sure.
And I'd love to talk, Sparty. We've already talked about having another sports stream specifically about college and going to games and stuff like that. So I am, we'll have to explore that and when we can do that. And and have fun with that, JT. Look forward to doing that in the
Sure.
future. All right. Well, stay with me. We'll
Likewise.
we'll stay with me. We'll say goodbye to everybody, and thank you for everybody that are here. Whether you're lurking, whether you're here in the chat, Masters, thank you again for that wonderful question. All of y'all, if y'all have questions like that, feel free to shout it out, put it in our chat. We appreciate it. Sunday afternoon, Mrs. Put Slided. I'm tentatively going to try to shoot this. Last week I took off because I just was tired and exhausted and maybe a little grumpy. So, but this Sunday I plan on trying to do another sports weekly where we'll talk about the college games from Saturday, update the polls, and talk about the NFL games that are in progress or have completed at that point. This has kind of been an impromptu stream that has been nice to come up with and to do. Uh, but it's really one of those things that depends on the mood. And yes, you're welcome, sports ball nerds. Yes, I need. Yeah, okay. You call us sports ball nerds. We know you're the golf expert out there. So hey, but hey, yeah. Also follow us on Dadman Walking 55 on Twitter. Absolutely the only one. Oh my goodness. Master said Mexican tax declaration by the Principal Court of Mexico. I don't remember this. There you go. So if we had this, but JT said, follow me on Twitter. You will know when I go live there, or sign up for the notifications on YouTube. Get them there. We have 486 subscribers now. Appreciate the support. Let's get to 500. We're almost there. And thank you definitely for the shout out on Twitch. And yes, I know you do. Maybe we can do something one day, Lisa. It's up to you. But I love your passion about all the topics. Lisa talked to me with me gardening before, and that was a wonderful stream. So thank you for that. Looking at here, let's see. I am actually going to be careful with this. We're halfway through, over halfway. There's JT Kirk up in here. And we'll go with our guests. We only got 5 more weeks. The season's almost over. Dates and guests subject to change. Actually, on this one here, we did have one change in here. Admiral Teague here has replaced Jane Theory later. So, hey, that's going to be a passionate thing. Talk about a guy that loves his football. He's all NFL. And definitely, and you're welcome, Lisa. You're always a blast to have around and talk to about any topic that's out there. And really so.
Yeah, and the Admirals must be riding high this week after the Jets
I think
victory in
yeah,
Philadelphia.
exactly. So, but remember Wednesday night, the great Daisy Blossom's going to be with me. We're going to talk about Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. We were supposed to do this last month, but life involved and things happened. So we're going to do it this month. Really looking forward to this so much with this. Like JT said, follow me on Twitter and you'll see that. Make sure you get the, if you're not, make sure you're sub, make sure that they haven't taken away your sub. Make sure you hold on, Masters. Don't leave too yet because I got a surprise coming up. Okay. Any of you guys here, there's a surprise that's coming up. Okay. This on Wednesday, join us for that. It's going to be a blast. Daisy's always great. This is not the surprise I was going to talk about, but this is coming up next Friday night at 9 p.m. Next Friday night, 9 p.m. next Friday night. Join us, YouTube and Twitch. Make sure you follow us on Twitch. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. A special stream announcement for something coming up with us in the future. Find out who our special guest next Friday night and what we're going to be talking about. So definitely do that. Also, remember, Late Night with Dadman and Friends is generally a set of impromptu streams late at night, usually when people aren't going and things like that, or whenever the hell I want to just talk and do stuff, because I've got no shortage of words. If I'm short of words, then I'm grumpy. So when Dadman doesn't talk, it's usually I'm not feeling good or it's a bad situation. But so look for these. Of course, get the notifications. Follow me on Twitter. Also, late Fortnite Fun with Dadman and friends. We just do it late night, early night, anytime. Lisa says, "Let's play Fortnite." It's like, yes, ma'am. We're on the. Everybody assemble. Uh, you know, or the missus wants to do stuff. Just join us for the Fortnite and friends. So let me do this real quick because I need to see which my next slide. Oh yeah, here's another one. Chill chats or something are kind of like the late night versions or early day versions when I kind of go myself or maybe have one person with me. So they're cool too. So again, notifications and all that. All right, Fortnite. Yes, exactly. Fortnite. Oh my goodness. Let me say this though. I don't know if that's a question for tonight or for another time, but hey, who knows? I got to check on some things. I've been multitasking for the last 6 hours, Lisa. You'd be proud of me. Okay. I've got to bring this up very carefully, so just bear with me a second. You ready for a surprise, JT?
I sure hope so. I'm ready for it. I
All
have
right.
no idea what it is.
All right. Well, let me get this thing brought up here. Of course, my screens are being slow.
I'm gonna make a random stab at it. You're doing an okra cooking show.
An okra cooking show?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I thought you said Oprah for a second, but I'm
No,
like,
no,
Oprah.
okra, like the fighting okra, the best
Oh,
mascot around.
that would be kind of cool to cook some okra or do something on mascots. That's the one thing is when we do that, if we do that other stream, we could do that stuff, talk mascots too. So, but anyway, no, this one is going to be, oh crap, stupid thing. My cursor didn't drag it right. So gotta redo this one again. Sorry. Let's
No
see.
problem.
Yeah,
No
but
problem.
hey, but we're almost done. Just this one is so hot off the presses. The missus sent this to me during the stream because this was just finalized tonight, and we shall see what this will be. So hey, what month is it?
October?
All right, all right. Besides football, what does October mean?
Apple cider? Halloween?
Halloween. And what's the
Okay.
best part about Halloween? What's the best part about Halloween?
This is a PG-13 stream?
You don't need to go that far, but yes.
Okay, candy.
Candy, yes. Oh
I
gosh.
was gonna say the certain dress
Candy.
of certain.
What the heck? Shoot, I boomered it. My screen is getting weird. I boomered it. Sorry, JT. My screen
No
is getting
problem.
weird. I got to update my computer, I think. But here, Halloween candy, the good, the bad, and the epic.
Nice.
Sunday, October 29th at 7 p.m.
Nice.
With
Nice.
the missus, Hungry Boy, and a surprise guest.
Ooh.
So go figure. This is a surprise guest. So, but hey.
Well, who loves candy? I know Clobby loves candy. Mark D with the C loves candy.
Exactly. But hey.
I love candy, but I know it's not me.
You never know. It'll be very interesting to see who our guest is. So hey.
Yeah.
Exactly. So let's see. Let me see here. I will do a live on Twitch with an Austrian pro cook on 4 November. We will cook Mexican. I will cook Austrian. At least I hope so. Please be our guest. Dadman Welcome 55 4 November. Let's see. I've got to double check what the dates are. That's a Saturday. I might be able to do that, Masters. Do you do email or do you do? If there's a way to contact me, I don't think you're on Twitter, but somehow remind me. But the 4th, okay, or if you come in the streams, let me know what time on the 4th and stuff like that. So I'll do what I can. Absolutely, be an honor. So good to see you. So there's the guesses have already started. So
Lisa, I don't know if it's Jess. Dadman does not divulge secrets. You cannot get anything out of this guy.
Nope.
So, in fat chance at
I,
me knowing before the end
let's
of the
put it
month.
this way. Let's put it this way. Even Hungry does not know who the surprise
Oh
guest is.
wow, wow, okay.
So, and he will not. So this is one that we're keeping close to the vest. So, um, but hey, either way, it's going to be a riot of a time and a lot of fun with Hungry Boy, as always, and our guest and stuff. So we are going to close now. So we are going to close. Let me get the screen back up. Yeah, Lisa's got. I don't know if I can play with Fortnite with Lisa now because Lisa's gonna be all on me now. Like, Hank.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's like, who do you know that
All right.
really likes Halloween candy and all kinds of
Yeah.
subtle ways to come
All
at you.
right. All right. Masters, is that an email address you're trying to put out there? If it is, I will make sure to. Yeah, Lisa's laughing. So, but yeah. Yeah, Lisa's the Gordon Ramsay for sure. That's for sure.
I want to know what Gordon Ramsay has to say about Tootsie Rolls.
Yeah, exactly.
Lisa's alter ego.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Dang, you'd made a good auditor in a past life or current life. So, yeah, that's your email. But it cut off. It cut off, Masters. It stopped at Masters Maniac Mexico. But what is it? Yahoo, Gmail. So that's where it cut off. So if you can confirm that, that'd be good. But hey, speaking of everything else, make sure you follow me. Like you said, YouTube and Twitch at Dadman Walking 55, except no substitutes. Dadman Walking 55 with the banana football avatar. Also, make sure you follow me on Twitch, get the notifications on Twitch and YouTube. Hit that bell on YouTube and get them all. Gmail. Okay, thank you. I will be mailing you soon before I forget. Okay. All right. You'll see mine, but it has a different number than 55, but it will be me. Okay, Masters. But yeah, hit the notifications on, everything. And when I do the impromptu streams, the Twitter's the best way to be because people have said they have not gotten the YouTube notifications. So, yes, exactly. So, oh gosh, really? Tess, this is something about Lisa. This new Tess said I should have been an accountant, but you like being outside. Yes, absolutely. That's why I try to go for walks at lunch. So, hey, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
UPS
I'm not
driver.
kidding. The test said I should have been a parcel delivery person.
Wow.
It's like, no, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it does
but
not
it's
fit
like
my personality whatsoever.
that's too crazy. We'll
Anyway.
see. Well, guess what? We managed to take this about 2.5 hours, JT.
Wow.
Great talking football with you tonight,
Yeah.
and look forward to doing something again. But all folks, thank you for being here. Make sure you follow me, get the notifications at each and all of these addresses. Masters, I will try to be in touch as soon as I can. And at this point, we will be next Thursday for now. But remember, things are subject to change, schedule, and guest. Oh, that makes sense according to Lisa. So that's okay. On that note, everybody, y'all have a great night. Thanks for being here, and thanks for supporting our channel. And we'll talk to you next time. Bye, all.
Bye, all.